What is up, everyone? This is James here, and today we're starting a brand new season of the Baekfast Club, which is a VGC talk show that covers all of the news updates for VGC, including the metagame and some stuff about like upcoming formats, upcoming games, seasons, circuit details, etc. So if you do enjoy the sound of that, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, on our brand new YouTube channel, the Baekfast Club, which does require a lot of support, please help out by leaving a like and leave a comment down below and let me know what you are going to think about this series, as well as any updates and any feedback. Of course, that would really help out. And of course, if you're watching on the brand new Spotify, because I will be uploading, or at least trying to upload this podcast onto Spotify now, make sure that you do support, or I don't know what you do on Spotify, honestly, because I don't use the platform. Like, I listen to my music on YouTube, so I don't know about Spotify, if like there are any viewers who are going to be listening to this on Spotify either. So I guess just do whatever like supports a thing on Spotify, you know. But if you do listen on Spotify, I do usually have visual updates on the YouTube video, usually for this podcast. So if you are a little bit unclear, yeah, make sure you go check out the YouTube video, because it will probably give more insight on like what topics I'm currently talking about. But I'll do my best to verbally explain what I can at the current situation. So yeah, we have Regulation H. This is the format that we're going to be playing until the end of November, and it's already been quite a couple of weeks coming up since we've had 3 regional championships. We've had a few major online tournaments, and yeah, we're going to be getting started with the news ever since like what happened coming back from the World Championship. And if you would like to hear more about like my personal experience at the World Championship, make sure you hit that subscribe button, or I don't know again what button you click on Spotify, but do your thing on Spotify. So let's get started, as I'm gonna try to make every episode not like too long, because sometimes it gets maybe too in detail and it takes too long. So I'm gonna try to focus on it to maybe like an hour and a half ish for each episode. And there aren't going to be like any consistent updates to this podcast. I do want to mention that I do try to upload this whenever like I really feel like it, because I don't really want to like be the, oh, this is instantly what happened kind of update, because sometimes maybe it won't even be that long of a episode at that point. And I really just want to like focus on the podcast when there's a bunch of news updates, that I'm able to give them in a concise manner, because I kind of want to paint a picture of like what's going on currently. So that's exactly what I want to do for Regulation H, because if you don't know, this is a second time repeating of this format. We had Regulation H towards the end of last year, and now we have Regulation H again, because it ended like January 2025 or earlier this year, and now it's coming back for another round. I don't know why they like this, but sure. So this format, for those of you who are unfamiliar, of course, VGC, Pokemon Video Game Championship, that is the official tournament circuit hosted by TPCI, also known as the Pokemon Company International. And yeah, it is a rule set that involves the Scarlet Violet Pokedex, where pretty much everything is legal except legendaries and mythical Pokemon. So no legendaries and no mythical Pokemon, and that includes stuff like the sub legendaries, like not even the cover legendaries, kind of like Urshifu or Landorus, for example. And of course, like the big boys like Miraidon, Koraidon are not legal. So that's basically what Regulation H is. If you took all of those Pokemon that are big legendaries and you got rid of them. So definitely going to be interesting to see, as this is kind of, I'll give my opinions on like what I think about the meta, and I'll be talking about like the progression. So we kind of concluded, of course, Regulation H with basically we had World Cup, we had like the Toronto Regional Championship, and then of course the Stadium Ladder for the December season. But pretty much the meta felt like it was complete going into the round 2, because it really doesn't feel like we have explored anything new. And yeah, I think we'll be seeing the teams, a lot of them are just going to be kind of like updated versions of what was used in Regulation H Part 1. So let's get started with the VR August Challenge, which is a online tournament hosted by Victory Road, and this was hosted at the end of August. So there were 356 players that entered this tournament. It's a pretty big online tournament, so if you are interested in competing in like online tournaments, make sure you go check out Victory Road. They're currently doing like an online VGC circuit currently. So if you're interested and want to compete for like prizes and stuff, make sure you go check it out. You can also fight usually some of the best players in the game. And the winning team was by Shohei Kimura. And if you don't know this player, this is the 2023 Pokemon VGC World Champion. And he had been using this team for quite a while. It is a team that features a pretty common 6 that he used towards the end of Regulation H Part 1, which is a combination that involves Mouse Hold with Annihilate and Golden Go. And the idea of this combination is it's pretty dang good. Like, it's pretty dang good in both closed team sheet and open team sheet because you have pretty consistent mons in general. Like, some of the top mons you'll just see on this team, and it's just really a good stuffs team for the most part. You have Golden Go, which is one of the best Pokemon in Regulation H, thanks to as good as Gold ability, because it just makes it immune to the status moves. Make It Rain is a really powerful attack, especially. The only drawback is the -1 special attack, but for a powerful steel move, that's a spread move as well. Absolutely incredible. The Nasty Plot, if it gets one Nasty Plot boost, it is really able to sweep, especially with that Life Orb, and it can go on the offense immediately. And yeah, it is just a really strong pick here. We also have VGC Regulation H classics like Dragonite. Dragonite was one of the best mons just in general for Regulation H, especially because of the DLC. The DLC introduced the move Scale Shot to Dragonite's toolkit, and is basically a multi-hit Dragon type move that does raise your speed as well after you use the move at the cost of a defense drop. But really, it just allows Dragonite to be really consistent because it's really powerful. With that loaded dice, which is guaranteed to hit 4 to 5 times, is pretty powerful. Of a same type attack bonus move off Scale Shot, it's really powerful. You're getting at least 100 base power. That's not even including same type attack bonus and more. It's a multi-hit move that can break sashes on Frail Mons, for example. And the ability Multi-Scale, which just halves the damage that Dragonite takes, really just makes Dragonite so strong because it's able to basically take any attack. There are very few moves that could just OHKO Dragonite without like a huge boost like immediately. So Multi-Scale Dragonite, it gets great moves like Tailwind and Haze that are just so good at supporting teams. It's got really good typing into a lot of common types. For instance, Dragon Flying, really good into like stuff like, of course, Rillaboom, the fire types like Incineroar, any water moves from like Rain, from like Basculegion or Pelipper. Yeah, it is a really strong mon. No surprise to see here. So Terra Fairy, Dragonite going to be here with the Terra Water, Life Orb, Nasty Plot, Golden Go. Running the Miracle Seed on the Rillaboom because the Blood Moon or Saluna on this team is a Solvest. The Rillaboom makes sense because you get a bit of grassy terrain. You're able to actually do well into rain because you do have that Grassy Glide to threaten Basculegions. And the Miracle Seed just guarantees the Grassy Glide KO on those Basculegions with Wood Hammer for a powerful grass type attack, Fake Out, of course, to help set up the Nasty Plot or bulk ups or more, and high horsepower. And Rillaboom is a Pokemon that usually tends to run high horsepower in this format over U-turn, which was pretty common in previous regulations. And the reason you want high horsepower is because of the really limited ground coverage that you get in this format. There really isn't that much ground coverage that you do get access to in this format. And high horsepower is just so valuable because you actually are able to hit Pokemon like Archaludon, like King Gambit, like Golden Go, like Sneasler. So being able to hit all those Pokemon with a 95 base power ground type attack is really solid and usually more valuable than the U-turn usually. So that's why high horsepower has been picking up on Rillaboom over the U-turn, and it's been pretty strong of an offensive option, I think, in this format especially. For Shohei's team, we also have the Focus Sash, Friend Guard, Mouse Hold, which of course Friend Guard does reduce the damage that the allies take from attacks, so it is really solid just to allow the Golden Go and Annihilate to set up. It also has redirection with the Follow Me, Super Fang able to do 50% of your opponent's current HP, and Beat Up, which is a multi-hit move, which there are some specifics if you don't know about Beat Up, but basically the idea is to go for Beat Up into your own Annihilate because of the fact that Annihilate Rage Fist boost. Rage Fist is a base power 50 move to start things off, but then Beat Up with the combination of Rage Fist, because Rage Fist does get boosted by each hit that Annihilate takes by another 50. So Beat Up will hit 4 times usually on a lead, and if you get 4 hits in Annihilate, that's plus 200. So it'll be a 250 base power Rage Fist off the bat that you have access to. So that's kind of the idea here. The Annihilate's really strong with the Define ability, able to have the Terra Fire as a defensive option for like preventing it from getting burned from Volcarona Flame Body, for example, as well as just be able to resist fairy type attacks with the Rage Fist, the Drain Punch, bulk up to setup and protect. And then Assault Vest Blood Moon Ursaluna has just been really strong. I mean, Blood Moon Ursaluna is pretty insane when you think about it, especially in a format where there's no Urshifu anymore. So just being able to have a Pokemon that's able to really tank attacks pretty well with that Assault Vest to cover its lower special defense and hit pretty hard. Special ground coverage is super valuable in this format to be able to hit, again, opposing Golden Goat through Intimidate, Archaladon through its defense boost from Staminas usually, and of course being able to threaten stuff like King Gambit, which is pretty solid. Blood Moon's a really strong normal type attack, Earth Power really powerful, ground type move, Hyper Voice for the spread damage, and then Vacuum Wave, which is a priority fighting type move, which is nice into King Gambit, and of course breaking like Focus Sash on like Sneasler, for example. So that was basically what Shohei ended up using, and he ends up using this team like quite throughout. So yeah, no surprise here that he was able to do well with this team. And yeah, like it's just a pretty good consistent team, right? You have multiple ways of setting up with Annihilate and Golden Go. You have some pretty good damage output, especially off the bat with the Miracle Seed Rillaboom, the Assault Vest Blood Moon Ursaluna, with Friend Guard, Mouse Hold, with Redirection. Your mons are really like naturally bulky, and then you're able to take the attacks better. And then you also have the Dragonite that is just, you know, pretty good and sets up speed control and can get a haze like to reset stat changes from your opponents, but also like against Undozo, which is useful. So yeah, no surprise here. It is really strong team, I think, that Shohei just has, and he was able to win the Victory Road tournament. Then we have Audric David, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who ended up getting second place and kind of using a pretty big balanced team featuring the Incineroar Amoonguss combination with Porygon 2. This is a pretty common one because you have really tanky mons. Yeah, Parting Shot and Incineroar, of course, to be able to try and pivot around, supports the Porygon 2, as well as just like trying to get a free switch to Ursaluna to activate the Flame Orb so it can get its guts. And of course, there is a difference between regular Ursaluna and the Blood Moon Ursaluna. I almost said Hisuian, but no. Regular Ursaluna and Blood Moon Ursaluna. Regular Ursaluna is a physical attacker with the Guts ability that is able to do a ton of damage, and with the Facade and the Flame Orb activation with Guts, it's able to really just power through opponents. Then you have stuff like that Porygon 2 Ursaluna, really bulky normal type Pokemon that are really hard to eliminate. Incineroar able to intimidate like the fighting type moves from Sneasler, for example, the close combat, and Amoonguss of course resisting those and being able to redirect Spore and Pollen Puff to allow the Pokemon to heal up, which is pretty incredible. Then you got like these Golden Go. This one's running the Metal Code instead of the Life Orb, which is pretty interesting of a choice here, because normally we see Life Orb Golden Go still as the most common Golden Go, but this one running Metal Code to power up its Steel type moves without taking that residual damage, and just going to be the same nasty Plot Terra Water set that we pretty much always see in this format, alongside the Safety Goggles Hydreigon, which is an interesting tech here with Draco Meteor, Snarl, Tailwind, and Protect. So this Hydreigon is pretty interesting against opposing Golden Go setup, because opposing Golden Go setup can be a little bit annoying for the Ursaluna mode, and having that Safety Goggles on the Hydreigon with the Ghost Terra is pretty interesting against like a balanced team like opposing Amoonguss and Incineroar. It's like hard to actually like stop this Hydreigon, especially with paired with Golden Go, because he can go for the Snarl. Hydreigon's faster, and the Terra Ghost is actually pretty cool because it makes you immune to Fake Out, but also like it allows you to wall opposing Ursalunas, or at least regular Ursaluna, with the Facade, which won't be able to hit it through its Terra Ghost, and then Levitate, of course, to make it immune to the ground type attacks. So really able to provide some extra speed control and allow maybe like your own Ursaluna and your Golden Go to outspeed threats, but otherwise it's a pretty classic build of the balanced Golden Go P2 Ursaluna teams, with the Terra Fighting Porygon 2, of course. The Terra Fighting you do run for King Gambit, especially because King Gambit can be pretty scary for the combination, especially a Sword Stance one with Terra Dark that can do a ton of damage with the Sucker Punches. So yeah, that's why you have Terra Fighting Porygon 2 on this team. But across the board, it is a pretty standard build that we have seen before in Regulation H. Then we have Joseph Ugarte getting third place with this interesting Sand team with Tyranitar and Excadrill. And we've seen like this kind of build actually do well in Regulation H Part 1 in the past. It was like the Nils Dunlop team, and it was pretty similar to this actually. It had pretty much the same builds. You had Focus Sash, Excadrill, the Assault Vest Tyranitar with the Terra Blast, Terra Flying, the Side Spam mode with the Entity, and the I think the Sneasler was White Herb on the Nils Dunlop team because he used it to win a regional championship in Regulation H. And it was still Choice Scarf Entity, the Terra Psychic, which is pretty strong with Expanding Force, and the Terra Blast with Protect and Trick. And you run that Protect, since if you go for the Trick, you're able to go for Protect to stall like Trick Room and stuff. So it makes sense there. And Entity doesn't really need the coverage. You're really just going for Expanding Force most of the time. And you have Terra Blast to have a same type attack bonus normal type move. And then if you need to go for a single target Psychic type attack, because let's say maybe there's a wide guard on your opponent's team, yeah, you have that option there. The Sneezer originally on Nil's team was going to be the wider with the close combat. I think it was coaching originally, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have it on this team because it was Psychic Seed Coronite originally. And the Coronite ended up changing the leftovers for a comfort pick just so you get extra recovery. But this original Coronite did have Power Trip, which was a dark type move that could actually punish Golden Go. This one's actually running 3 support moves with Bulk Up Roost as setup, and then the Tailwind, which is able to help out the rest of the team outspeed stuff. But yeah, definitely different changes. And then Annihilate, which I think Nils had Magmar, if I'm not mistaken. So this Annihilate just being really good into like Trick Room stuff, because this is more of a fast offensive passive team. And of course, that final Gambit, taking the trades, getting rid of the threat to like a setup Coronite can be really powerful, because not a lot of things in this format really hit Coronite for that much damage. So if you're able to set up with bulk ups, you're able to get rid of the threat with final Gambit, it can be really powerful there. So that's the idea of Joe's team. Then we have the team by David, who ended up getting 4th place. And it looks, I mean, it looks kind of standard, but at the same time, it's definitely an interesting assortment of mons. You have a Safety Goggles Incineroar. You have a Miracle Seed Rillaboom with the highest power, which is pretty standard. You have then some of the rest of the mons. I mean, you do have like the standard loaded dice, Terra Fairy, Scale Shot Dragonite with Tailwind and Haze. And then the rest is like, okay, you have Quiver Dance, Terra Fairy, Volcarona. Okay, that makes sense because there is double fake out. You can support your Volcarona, go for Quiver Dances, the Terra Fairy, Volcarona, of course, for the Scale Shot on the Dragonite, making it immune because it would take a lot of damage otherwise. And then, of course, giving it the access to the Fairy Terra Blast, which is pretty powerful because Fairy coverage is really strong offensively in this format. And then it's paired with some interesting last mons, which is going to be the Assault Vest Tyranitar for a weather change. I guess for the rain matchup especially, it could be a little bit annoying. So having the Tyranitar to be able to shut down the weather could be good into some trick routines, because there are a lot of mons that struggle against to face Tyranitar. And then yeah, like the Assault Vest Terra Blast Tyranitar, which is pretty good coverage wise, and it's just able to tank attacks. And then the Choice Scarf Basculation with adaptability. So Basculation you'll either see usually on a rain team, which is going to generally be a Swift Swim set with either Life Orb or Choice Band usually to do a lot of damage. But then you have these adaptability sets, and they usually tend to run Choice Scarf because Basculation, it doesn't have the best speed immediately, so having that Choice Scarf to make up for it and really allow for it to be a really effective like early game flip turner, because it does a lot of damage with the adaptability boosted flip turn, which is gets rid of your same type attack bonus from 1.5. It increases it to 2 times, so it's really powerful there. Flip turns will hurt. And of course, you do have the Last Respect, which is a very deadly ghost type move, which is like kind of like Annihilate. It's a 50 base power move to start off, but if you have your allies get knocked out, for each ally that's knocked out on your team, it's a plus 50 base power to the attack. So with adaptability, it can really add up very quickly. So it does a massive amount of damage. So you have like this setup mode that you can go for, and then you have like this late game Basculation that you can go for, and that's kind of the idea here. So that was the team that was able to get 4th place. 5th place was a legendary team builder in Regulation H, and that was Yvesangelist. And oh man, this team is really, really good. Like, if you don't know, Yvesangelist was the original creator. I believe I don't remember if he won a global challenge exactly with this team. I think he was close. I think he like placed really high in the global challenges. He was dominant on the stadium ladder for most of Regulation H as well with this one team. And yeah, he's been using it still ever since. And it features a rain team with Safety Goggles Pelipper with Muddy Water over Weather Ball, which is a bit rare, but having the spread water move can be helpful, especially against the weather mirrors, because otherwise you would have Weather Ball, which is reliant on which weather is currently set up. So having a water type move, which is pretty useful outside of like weather, is super nice to have, especially with the spread move. Even though it's a bit inaccurate, it is definitely has its upsides. Then you have with our Chaladon. Of course, our Chaladon is one of the big 3 steel types that you really use in this regulation. It is so strong. It has really incredible bulk with its high HP, its physical defense, and really good special attack. It's got low special defense and its speed is like all right, but the fact that you have a Assault Vest to make up for its special defense, and then Electro Shot. So Electro Shot is a very powerful electric type move that gives a +1 special attack every single time that our Chaladon uses it, but it's a 2-turn move because it takes a turn to set up, kind of like Solar Beam, for example, or Meteor Beam. But there is a condition where under rain, it just instantly bypasses the charge turn and you can immediately fire off the electro shot. So it is an absolutely absurd mon for anyone who's never seen an Archaladon before. It is really powerful. So it is a very common combination. But the thing is, Arizabev ended up going with a different approach to Archaladon on these rain teams, because normally you would see like mostly focusing on electro shot and just maybe body press is the 4th move, because you have that stamina, which every time our Chaladon gets hit, it gets a +1 defense boost. But the idea that Arizabev had was a bit different, and you have this Dragonite with the loaded dice set. It's like pretty standard. We've seen the Terra Fairy multi-scale loaded dice Dragonite set before. We've talked about it on several teams here already, but the idea is to go for a self-scale shot, and the idea is a multi-hit move from the Dragonite to hit your own Archaladon, which is going to increase the stamina on Archaladon, get at least 4 or 5 boosts, and then you could go for a body press. And this Archaladon is also running Terra Fighting, so it can really power up that body press. It's also running a plus defense nature usually on these teams. So imagine a +4, +5, same type attack bonus, body press from a really high defense mon already. It gets knockouts, and this thing is Eevee to be more defensive than like maybe fast or speed that you would normally see on a regular Archaladon in rain. So this mon taking attacks and really firing back. Now the thing is, you still do a decent amount of damage because scale shot is pretty powerful, even though it's getting weaker with every stamina hit. So you do have to worry about a bit of the damage output because of the fact that your Archaladon will take quite a bit. So what do you do to solve that? You have the Hospitality on the Sinistra. And the Hospitality on the Sinistra heals the Pokemon by 25% every time Sinistra switches in. So if you switch into Sinistra, get an instant 25% healing on our Chaladon, and just allow the Sinistra to keep going for pivots and allow for healing. Of course, it has that Rage Powder redirection, the Trick Room if you need to go for the Trick Room for speed control, and Life Dew to heal its ally if you don't want to like waste time like switching in and out. You can go for the Life Dew if Sinistra isn't threatened, and that can also work spectacularly. We also have this Ursaluna with the Flame Orb and Guts, kind of similar before regular Ursaluna. However, on these teams, the Ursaluna tends to be like really fast. I don't know if they run max speed or max speed adamant sometimes, but I know I've seen like these Ursalunas be incredible fast, because a lot of the time, sometimes one of the most common leads with this team will be like Dragonite Ursaluna, so you can go for like Tailwind and a fast attack. And yeah, like the fact that this Ursaluna will be able to actually threat under Tailwind, again, you have 2 Tailwind mons on this team, can be really solid, because normally you would think Ursaluna being slow under Trick Room, but this one can actually capitalize and be very fast, get some knockouts, and get really quick KOs, which you typically wouldn't see. Then the final mon going to be that Golden Go with the Choice Scarf. I think this is nice because it does provide some speed to the team, because if you notice from the rest of the team, everything's pretty slow, doesn't have a thing that's over fast or over base 100. So you go for that Choice Scarf Golden Go, and you go for like fast attacks. You also have a Pokemon that can actually switch into a Moongus naturally, which is pretty solid. And of course, being able to threaten the fairy types, make it rain, Shadow Ball, pretty good coverage. You have Trick again for a Disruptor, and then Protect, the same idea. Like this was the original idea, like Trick Protect was usually like this Golden Go set, because you could go for Trick to give the user Choice Scarf if they go for a Trick Room, and if they go for a Trick Room, then you can protect the stall out and have them reverse Trick Room. That's kind of the idea here. And really a lot of coverage for Golden Go is going to be Make It Rain and Shadow Ball. You have Terra Fly on this Golden Go because you can pair it with your Ursaluna, and you can actually go for Earthquake next to your own partner, which is very nice. And yeah, this was a team that really dominated, I think, Regulation H, especially towards like the LAIC period, which was the big major of Regulation H Part 1. And Torviv actually copied this Arizabev team And yeah, then it ended up being very popular and it did well at LIC. It was able to do well in Toronto, I think, as well. And yeah, it's just such a solid team. Like Elizabeth really has crushed it, and still using the same team, maybe a few updates here and there for Regulation H Part 2, but no surprise. He is the creator. He's probably the one who understands this team the most. And yeah, has really been able to have some great success with it. Then sixth place, we have Marcus, who ended up using a Dundozo Tatsugiri team. We don't really see Dundozo Tatsugiri that much in Regulation H. Like, we've maybe had one really good Tatsugiri Dundozo in like the original Regulation H that wasn't just like grand challenges or global challenges, which was like a top 16 at LIC. But yeah, we don't really see Dundozo Tatsugiri because the Haze Dragonite just picked up so well. And before then, it was the Haze Primarina meta. So we don't really see Dundozo too much. But this one's a really offensive variant with the male entity, with Expanding Force, able to threaten a lot with the Helping Hand, especially next to the Unburdened Psychic Seed Sneasler to double its speed and really threaten some heavy amounts of damage with the Dire Claw to close combat, and of course the Terror Dark Throat Chop option, especially to help out against the Golden Goes out there. And then you have like this Silk Scarf Ursaluna Blood Moon alongside this Covert Cloak Whimsicott that is able to go for Light Screen, that is able to help the special defensive side, which Dundozo and Blood Moon Ursaluna very much appreciate. And then of course the Helping Hand to deal a lot of damage. And that's kind of the idea of the team. Really, again, you have the mind game with Dundozo Tatsugiri, and then you have the offensive mode with the Sneasler, Entity, and Blood Moon Ursaluna. And if you get it wrong, you could be put in a bad spot and lose a Pokemon immediately. So make sure that you guess carefully against this team. So that was Dundozo Tatsugiri. Then we also have, you know, pretty standard stuff, I think, for 7th and 8th place. 7th place was a team that's pretty much this core. I think I mentioned this core before, but it is what some players will refer to as the Doug core, also known as DUG, which stands for Dragonite, Ursaluna, usually Ursaluna Blood Moon. It's not usually regular Ursaluna, and then Golden Go. And a lot of these Regulation H cores are usually around this build because they're probably like 3 of the most powerful Pokemon in the format. You have Dragonite, of course, one of the most consistent ones with the multi-scale, good support move options. Not much to say about it. Blood Moon Ursaluna, as I mentioned before, really rare to get a special ground type mon, and is really powerful just in general. And then you also have Golden Go, which one of the best steel type moves because of Nasty Plot, again being able to be immune to any non-attacking moves thanks to its ability. Really good typing offensively and defensively. Yeah, like it is just super strong. So we're seeing this like a combination, and we'll see throughout Regulation H. This is pretty much like a main core because a lot of players, even like some of the newer updated teams, will still feature this core because of like how good these Pokemon are. And this variant is going to be the standard loaded dice Dragonite running the Terra Steel. Usually they run either Terra Fairy or Terra Steel. Terra Fairy, so you wall opposing Dragonites, and then the Terra Steel, you resist of course the scale shots from opposing Dragonite, but you also have things like resisting ice coverage, make it rain from the Golden Goes because you would be weak to make it rain if you are a fairy type and you're forced to fairy type the Dragonite. So yeah, like steel sometimes is used, but it's usually one of those typings. Life Orb, Terra Water, Golden Go with Nasty Plot, no surprise there. The Incineroar with Safety Goggles, the Sulfest Rillaboom, not much to say there. And then the Blood Moon Ursaluna opting for the Leftovers Calm Mind variant. And Leftovers is a thing on the Blood Moon Ursaluna that we've seen. Like Assault Vest has been probably one of the most common items because, again, the way that it's just able to tank attacks from the special side is just really good. But then you have like the other items which either tend to be Life Orb offensive, which you don't commonly see as much on the Doug core because usually the Golden Go really likes that Life Orb set. So we see instead going to go for the third most common item, which is the Leftovers, especially when paired with Rillaboom. You're able to heal from the grassy terrain a 6.25% healing. Then you have the Leftovers for 6.25 healing. So you get like 12% a turn. And then if you go for Protect, you get 25% of your HP recovery, which is pretty absurd when you think about it. And on a Pokemon that's bulky as Blood Moon, yeah, it's really powerful. Running this Terra Electric set, which is a really great defensive typing against the Make It Rain from opposing Golden Go, while also not suffering from being like weak to the grass type attacks like the Terra water set is vulnerable to, especially because like you can't Terra in front of a Rillaboom. Now you can Terra in front of a Rillaboom with electric, even though it has worse like defensive coverage in general. Like the fact that it's neutral is good enough for this Blood Moon Ursaluna to want to go for Terra, because it's really hard to remove a Blood Moon Ursaluna, because again, the only thing that hits electric is ground coverage super effectively, and there aren't too many of those in the format that you can find. So we're in this Calm Mind set to make up for a special attack and threats and a lot of damage. Sometimes you'll see the Yawn set as well on the Blood Moon Ursalunas when they run leftovers, but it's either Yawn or Calm Mind most of the time. And then also Coaching Sneasler, which is a pretty common pair with Dragonite, because you have the fake out pressure, you threaten the Dire Claws into any fairy terrestrializations, and then you have the coaching to boost up the Dragonite's attack and defense, which makes the scale shot even more threatening with this Dragonite. So that's the idea here. That was able to get 7th place, and then finally the 8th place, which is a team we've seen before several times in Regulation H Part 1, is going to be like a King Gambit setup mon, which this King Gambit going to run the safety goggles with the Terra Dark set. The Terra is just very on King Gambit. Like Dark Terra is very common early Sword and Shield especially, but Terra Dark kind of has fallen off in Regulation H. Now you see like Ghost, Fire, but sometimes you'll still see Dark regardless. And running the safety goggles because otherwise this team has like no really good answers to Amoonguss. So that's the idea of safety goggles. Sword Stance, King Gambit with double dark type moves. Then you have like the Sneasler with the coaching setup, which you can go for coaching into your own King Gambit or your other Pokemon that you have on this team with the Focus Sash and Poison Touch. And sometimes you'll see Poison Touch, sometimes you'll see Unburden on Sneasler. And the idea is basically, hey, I have a pretty good chance to get something out of the Dire Claw interaction, which is either 30% status effect from the Dire Claw or the 30% chance from the Poison Touch from the Sneasler. So you have pretty good odds of getting a pretty good status. And then you have stuff like the Assault Vest Rillaboom with the fake out support to help out the King Gambit. Pretty standard otherwise. You have the Loaded Dice Excalibur, which is kind of interesting. We don't see Excalibur as much, but the fact that Loaded Dice, of course, multi-hit moves are effective, and having the access to both Icicle Spear and Scale Shot, really good coverages. And Excalibur is faster than Dragonite, for example, so you can actually go for the Icicle Spear and the Scale Shot before Dragonite attacks, which is pretty valuable. And yeah, then you also have the Covert Cloak, Volcarona. This one opting for both Quiver Dance and Rage Powder. It's because like, hey, do you want to support like your other mons, go for the damage there, or do you want to go for the Quiver Dance setup and sacrifice to protect that way with the Terra Fairy, Terra Blast, as I mentioned before, and the Heat Wave for the fire type attack. And then last mon they're running is going to be the Dondozo, and they run Dondozo because it's a really bulky water mon that can be really hard to knock out after a coaching boost, but also you do have Yawn as disruption. And then you do have Fisher if you need to bail out of like the Archaludon Rain matchup, because otherwise this team can kind of struggle into Archaludon especially. So kind of needs them on, but Dondozo, I feel like these leftover sets of course are going to be really annoying to deal with, especially with the grassy terrain. As I mentioned before, the recovery is pretty absurd with leftovers and grassy terrain. And then the Fisher option, yeah, with Yawn, you just get several chances to hit a Fisher. Like it's something you really have to fear. So yeah, that was a team that was pretty common in Regulation H Part 1, and that was pretty much what I want to cover from the VR challenge. Of course, there were some other teams. For example, this Klefki team, which was used in World Cup, is basically screens and just support the Annihilate, utilizing Vanguard Mousehold, Sinistra for hospitality to heal the Annihilate, and then you have like Alolan Ninetales as well as Blood Moon Ursaluna. And yeah, like across the board, like the rest of the teams, I feel like we're pretty standard for like Regulation H standards. There's not like too much craziness. There was a Rabombi that was able to get 13th place in this tournament, just barely missing out on the top cut stage. This was paired with the Hisuian Typhlosion, and the idea is to go for like fast fake tears with Rabombi. Again, fairy coverage is very weird in this format where you don't really get too much, so having that option for a Moonblast. And yeah, you might be thinking, oh, why not just go with Whimsicott? Well, you get a free Focus Sash and Shield Dust, which basically Shield Dust is like Covert Cloak as an ability, prevents the secondary effects from affecting Rabombi. So you kind of can have both 2 in 1 in that scenario. And of course, not having Prankster can be pretty good actually, because you can actually fake tiers like Dark type Mons, for example. Yeah, that's the idea here, and it was paired with the Hisuian Typhlosion that could go for like a Choice Specs fire type attack, or this sturdy Power Herb Archaludon that can really fire off attacks with that fake tears combination. Otherwise, you will see stuff like rain and pretty much like a lot of golden goes, a lot of dragonites, a lot of blood moon ursa lunas. You'll see some porygon 2s. You'll see a lot of rain stuff. You'll see some different weather things. And yeah, like across the board, maybe there's some interesting takes. There was a Garganical in 23rd place. We'll talk more about Garganical later. A Como in 22nd place, which Como was able to get top 4 at the Latin American International Championship that featured the Clanger Soul move, which is able to increase all of Como stats by 1 at the sacrifice of 25%, or is it 33% of its current HP? It's one of the two. I haven't used Como in a bit. Actually, there were 2 Comos, one in 20th place and one in 22nd place. There's a really interesting double weather team that got 21st place, I guess, from... Oh man, what am I looking at here? The Terra Fighting Body Press, Torkoal with Citrus Berry support. You have Covert Cloak, Glare, Taunt, Superior with Leaf Storm Contrary, Assault Vest Standard, Tyranitar with Terra Flying, Infernal Paradise, Twist Scarf, Typhlosion with Bright Powder, Garchomp with Sandveil, of course. Gotta have the Sandstream. And then you have this Grimmsnarl, which is both screens with Light Clay and Parting Shot, Spirit Break as its option. So crazy team. You're not really gonna see it too much, but hey, it was something, all right. And then you see like Davide Carrier, who is a really strong player from Italy, get 28th place with Espafra, which is pretty interesting. Features like a Life Orb Espafra team, and we'll actually go over this team later as we'll see. But it was cool to see there, and yeah, like you'll see some unique mons. Sometimes you'll see like 30th place get a Tauros, and Tauros is pretty interesting with the Water Tauros because it is a mon that's good against Kingambit, which the team that is brought a little bit weak to, but with that Mirror Herb, able to outspeed, Pressure, Annihilate, which is pretty cool. So there's an option there. And then we see Flamigo, which was a thing back in the early parts of the Regulation Age Part 1, and that was used a lot on the Porygon 2, Ursaluna, Incineroar, Moongus, Golden Go teams. Because of the access to Wide Guard, Scrappy allows it to actually hit the ghost types with fighting type moves, so close combat's actually super effective and can hit Golden Ghost. So yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of stuff that we see throughout, but I think those are probably good enough to cut away to our next one, because we have been going over this tournament a lot. I feel like I've explained a lot of the basics of Regulation Age for anyone new. All right, let's go over the Frankfurt Regional Championship, which was the first regional championship coming back, as well as the first one for Europe in the brand new season. So there were 742 masters and 12 rounds of Swiss for this tournament, and it was won by Emanuele, who was running a really interesting take on the balance stuff. We have the Blood Moon Ursaluna with the Terra Electric and the Yawn set, and as I said before, Blood Moon Ursaluna really strong, and with that leftovers in the grassy terrain, being able to heal on such a bulky Pokemon really is helpful. And then the Yawn, which is very disruptive because it can force your opponent to switch out or end up taking the sleep the following turn. And the really big difference here, I mean, there is the Safety Goggles Incineroar, the Life Orb Water Terra Golden Go with Nasty Plot, a Vest Standard Rillaboom, and the Terra Electric Yawn Blood Moon Ursaluna, which is a bit more interesting. And then you have the Alolan Ninetales with no Aurora Veil, which is definitely one that you would commonly see, but it does make sense because of all the weather wars that are just going to happen in this format. It's kind of hard to set up Aurora Veil like safely a lot of the time. So sometimes maybe you'll want to go for a different option. Having that Icy Wind speed advantage could be really nice for your own Golden Go, as well as like your Blood Moon Ursaluna. And then Disable can just be a really strong move to prevent your opponent from going like really powerful attacks, right? And the Blizzard's really nice because ice coverage is kind of hard to have in this format. So having an option to go for both Blizzard or Icy Wind if the snow is gone, so you have more accurate ice type move, is very much appreciated. But then we have the Sneasler set, and this Sneasler set isn't like technically new. It's been used in Regulation Age before, but I don't think it was like a super common pick. But this was able to win the regional championship here. It is going to be the Grassy Seed Sneasler, which under grassy terrain, the items consumed gives a +1 defense to Sneasler. And then because of the Unburden ability, you do get an active double speed boost. So that's very solid. And then it's running Close Combat, Acrobatics, Sword Stance, and Protect. So Sword Stance Sneasler isn't technically new. Even the Terra Flying Acrobatics set isn't like anything I think we haven't seen before, because I do remember seeing this set a decent amount in like global challenge or grand challenges slash global challenges in like part 1 of regulation H. So we haven't really seen it do well in the regional level, I believe. So seeing it here actually take the first tournament is actually really awesome. And like, you might be wondering, why no Dire Claw and Sneasler? Isn't that the move everyone complains about? Yeah, but like, the thing is, I think the value of acrobatics with Terraflying makes a lot of sense on this kind of composition. If you look at the composition, it does kind of struggle against the Volcarona, for example. So being able to hit Volcarona with Terraflying acrobatics is pretty important, and also being able to pressure Annihilate, because you can go for a sword stance, and then after that Terraflying acrobatics, you can Oko Annihilate. So super powerful, allows a more setup version of this that isn't just the Golden Go. You have 2 different setup modes you can go for with Sneezer and the Golden Go, and it's really good against opposing Sneasler, which wouldn't be able to usually touch regular Sneasler. Like, you would go for Dire Claws in close combats, and you would either hope for the status or to chip them away. With the Grassy Seed, you'll be able to kind of wall opposing Sneaslers and then go for that Sword Stance. That Acrobatics, again, really threatening for some heavy amounts of damage, especially after the +2, because Acrobatics gets double power after the item is consumed. And yeah, like, oh man, it is very powerful. So there's a lot you can do with Acrobatic Sneezer, which I think is just really cool on this build. And yeah, it's like a really good balance pair. You have double fake out, of course, with the instant or Rillaboom. You have pivoting. You have the setup mons with Sneasler and Golden Go. You have the Alola Ninetales to help out with weather and give you a bit more of a faster mode, because you do have Ninetales and Sneasler as like pretty fast mons in general. And then the Blood Moon Ursaluna that can slow down the pace and also just be a huge threat, because it's really hard to get rid of Blood Moon Ursaluna, especially with that access to recovery with the leftovers and the grassy terrain. So that was Emmanuel's team, and he did a phenomenal job at the regional championship and was able to win. And for second place, I think the team might look a lot more familiar, or sound more familiar again if you're listening on Spotify. So Victor Medina, one of the best players in Europe, and absolutely crushed it in Regulation H part 1, because he was the finalist at the Latin American International Championship. He used the Elizabeth team to get second place there, and has brought Rain once again, but not the Elizabeth team, more of like a standard Rain. This Rain team, I think, one of the most standard builds, but pretty much a powerful, balanced kind of composition of a Rain take, right? I think one of the most well-known players who ended up using like this kind of 6 consistently was a player known as Francesco Piopero, who also like did really well in Regulation H, got top 16, I believe, at the Latin American International Championship utilizing this 6. And it's going to be the Pelipper with the Focus Ash and with the Choice Band Basculegion Male, which is really powerful with that Wave Crash, the Last Respect, as I mentioned before, running the Terra Water, so those Wave Crashes just really hurt. And it's paired with Archaludon. The Archaludon on this team is kind of taking the Elizabeth take a bit, because normally on Archaludon, the Rain teams, you'll usually see like a different Terra type, like Bug. Maybe you'll see some grass compositions for the Amoonguss Spores. But this one's actually running Terra Fighting for the Body Press, so you can actually do a ton of damage. And it makes sense because the team doesn't have an initial King Gambit switch in, other than Incineroar, but you're giving it a boost, so I don't know if that's really a switch in you really want. So the Terra Fighting makes sense to help out as the King Gambit resist, and also power up the Body Press, which can be useful to help out against opposing Ursalunas. And then you have like this Golden Go, Amoonguss, and Incineroar combination, right? Running some interesting Terra types, of course, running the Water Terra type on this Incineroar. And that's a pretty interesting choice, but I guess, again, when you're taking a really powerful Water type moves and don't exactly have the best switch into Water, having a Water Terra type is still useful. The Psychic Terra on Amoonguss, that's usually for like dealing with the Sneasler male entity combinations, because it's really hard to knock out Amoonguss with that Psychic Terra, especially if they're intimidated, they can't knock out. Then you can go for a Spore, and it makes dealing with side spam a lot easier. And then the Golden Go running that nasty Plot Life Orb set, but a different Terra type, running the Flying Terra instead, which is an interesting choice. That's the Terra type we saw on the Elizabeth team when you had a regular Ursaluna, but I guess like it helps because of the fact that it's good into Ursalunas in general, because you're immune to the normal type attacks from regular Ursaluna, and then you have the Terra Flying option to get around the ground type moves. And it's also pretty interesting against Blood Moon Ursaluna interactions, because you do have the Terra Flying, which makes you immune to the ground type attacks. But of course, Blood Moon, if you go for Protect with the Golden Go, if they're not running Hyper Voice, that means if you get the play right on the Blood Moon, they can't really touch Golden Go at all. So that is something that's pretty significant. So the Terra flying option is pretty cool here. So that is what Victor used, and the man will get a big tournament win sometime soon. Like, Victor is one of the players who has still never have gotten a major win yet, and it's just shocking because if you don't know, he is also the player who eliminated me from the World Championship in top 16. I think the man is incredibly good, one of the best players in Europe easily, but man, I'm still shocked he has not taken that win, but he will get one eventually. Like, the fact that Victor might have been so cursed, the fact that there's something in the VGC community that happened like after some major events was like the Wanfi curse. And if you don't know, there's a player known as Wanfi who makes tweets about like hyping up players, and usually it'll be during tournaments, and then they'll usually lose. Like, those players will tend to lose. So it's been dubbed a Wanfi curse, and Wanfi was hyping up the other guy but rooting for Victor secretly, and unfortunately it was just not enough for Victor's second place curse currently. But I do think he will crush it for the rest of the season, and yeah, like a phenomenal start, I think, because really solid team and really just not really too much weaknesses as long as you play well. You have really good tools in general. Again, Amoonguss and Cineroar, you have Fake Out, you have Spore, you have Redirection, you have Pivoting, you have really strong setup with Golden Go or Chaladon, and you have like good offensive pressure with Basket Legion and weather control with the Pelipper. Not much to say. It is a really powerful team. Then we have third place Shohei Kimura, which is using the exact team we saw him use to win the VR challenge, which is going to be this Annihilate, Mousehold, Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Dragonite, Golden Go, and Rillaboom. I don't think I really need to say much about the team that I didn't already cover in the VR challenge, but yeah, basically the idea, you have really strong, good mons in general. You have redirection, you have setup, you have bulky Pokemon in general, you have speed control, you have haze to get rid of any stat changes from the opponent side. Yeah, like you just have a team of really good mons paired with an excellent player. Like, yeah, no surprise that he was able to get top 4. Then we have this crazy Espafra size spam team, and Espafra, for those of you who don't know, it's a new Gen 9 Pokemon. We have seen it a bit in like the early series in Gen 9, but we really have not seen it too much. What makes Espafra really cool though, it's got really already a pretty fast speed stat, and then you have speed boost on top of that. So getting extra speed boost does allow the Espafra to outspeed a lot of Pokemon in the format, like Sneasler, a lot of the Choice Scarf Mons. It's a pretty threatening Mon, although its special attack is not like really that great. That's the problem. It's like decent, but it's not incredible. But that's where you have all the multipliers here on this Espafra team. It is a Life Orb Espafra with Terra Psychic to power up its Psychic type moves even further. Really rely on its Psychic type moves. Expanding Force, which is a move that's just super powerful in the Psychic terrain, and because the spread move went in Psychic terrain, as well as the Lumina Crash, which is a Psychic type move unique to Espafra, and it's really cool. So basically, it is a 80 base power Psychic type move, single target, but it is guaranteed to lower the target's special defense by 2 stages after hit. And that is really cool because you could go for Lumina Crash into combos, like Lumina Crash and then another Lumina Crash is really powerful in the Psychic terrain. You have like Lumina Crash plus Draco Meteor on this team because you have a Hydreigon as well. Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff you could do with Lumina Crash, and it is a pretty threatening mon. The only thing is its defenses are really not that great, but it is supposed to be more of a sweeper, and it does have Dazzling Gleam as its last move, which is supposed to hit dark types. It's really not doing too much damage, so you're really relying on the Psychic type moves, but that's pretty much what you're using Espafra for because you're covering the other mons with that Sneasler, of course, with the size spam stuff. You do have the Unburden Terra Dark Sneasler to threaten again the dark types with the close combat, and the Golden Goes with the Terra Dark Drill Chop angle. You have the Indity, which is going to be more supportive, and not running Trick Room, which is kind of interesting because this is an Indity female with Protect instead of Trick Room, which you normally would see Trick Room. But because of how like a Espafra Indity, if you want to lead it, sometimes works, you'll really want maybe like the speed boost on the Espafra immediately in order to outspeed threats and KO them safely. So sometimes you'll want to go for a double, you'll want to at least protect the Espafra turn 1, and that would allow Indity to be vulnerable, right? So you run Protect here because you want the ability to double protect and make sure that Indity's not a sitting duck, right? So that's the idea of having Protect on the Espafra team here, and it makes more sense here. And you have the redirection of Follow Me and Help You Hand, the psychic damage, of course. the Terra Dragon as a defensive type on the entity for like the common types like fire, water, grass, and electric. And then you have like this interesting like rest of the mons, because this team is definitely stranger than the others. We have the Sneezer, we have the Spafford, we have the entity female. Then the other three, like, okay, maybe the other two are more unlikely to be seen, but we have King Gambit, but Assault Vest King Gambit, which has definitely fallen off. Like a lot of King Gambits now are just like either black glasses or usually the safety goggle set with sword stance and coverage, right? This one's running Assault Vest with the Terra Flying, which was an old set, like really used in earlier regulations, Regulation H Part 1. It was also used a decent amount. But yeah, it is running Kowtow, Cleave, Sucker Punch, Low Kick, and Terra Blast, which is really interesting to see because no Iron Head, even though like it covers the Fairy Terras, like it doesn't really need it because you want Low Kick for opposing King Gambit because of course the Dark type moves, being able to hit Incineroar that is able to threaten the Spaffra. It makes so much sense that you want that fighting coverage as much as possible because it really allows the Expanding Force plus the fighting coverage option to really be able to pin slots. Terrifying Terra Blast is fantastic, able to threaten Pokemon like Rillaboom, which is really nice, opposing Sneasler, and those are some pretty big threats in itself. You have Sucker Punch, and even though this is a Psychic Terrain team, you're not always playing Psychic Terrain, and you don't always bring the Entity, so it makes a lot of sense, because Sucker Punch, of course, priority is fantastic, and Kowtow Cleave, of course, a really strong Dark-type move. Then you have the rest of the mons, the Hydreigon, running Taunt instead, and I kind of mentioned already about like Hydreigon earlier in the episode, where you have the Terrago safety goggles set. It's really good into balance teams, and I think this one especially because it has access to Taunt, so you can shut down Porygon 2 from going for Trick Room, taunt the Amoonguss so it can't redirect or actually go for like a Spore into your other slot. So I think like this Hydreigon more effective into the balance teams, and it's a really big killer to those Porygon 2 Ursa Luna teams, as well as like those really heavy Golden Go setup teams, because it's really hard to actually break through this Hydreigon. And then the Hisuian Arcanine, which is really unique here because this one's a Mirror Herb Hisuian Arcanine. And what Mirror Herb does, of course, it allows you to copy a stat change that your opponent has. And the idea here is Hisuian Arcanine leads, gets an Intimidate off against a Defiant Mon usually, which is going to be the Annihilates or maybe an opposing King Gambit, and then you get a boost on top of that with a +2 attack stat. So you have a +2 Arcanine that's able to really threaten. If you're facing like an Annihilate plus Mousehold combination and they try to Terra the Annihilate, usually it's Fire Terra, so you are neutral against the Psychic type attacks, you can actually go for like a Rock Slide double up and it will KO usually, so that's fantastic. But also Mirror Herb can be like really good into several stuff. We've seen Mirror Herb and Incineroar do well, for instance, at LIC before. And you know, there's still a lot of setup in the format, stuff like Quiver Dance, Volcarona, the Scale Shot Dragonite gain the speed boost. So just having that Mirror Herb is just so nice for a lot of stat changes that it actually becomes pretty common. And again, being able to pressure the Defiant Mons with a +2 Arcanine, taking the boost and actually putting on pressure is pretty strong. And if you are wondering, I have done several videos on some of the things we've talked about, including an analysis of the final set on my YouTube bonus channel. So if you are interested in more VGC content and want to see like in-depth explanations about like some of the things I'm talking about, make sure you go check out my YouTube channels, especially if you're listening on Spotify. There is the James W. Baek main channel, which features teams. I actually did feature this team on this channel, or I don't know when this podcast is coming out, so maybe it's like I've not shown it yet, but yeah, this team's coming to the channel if it hasn't already been uploaded, where I showcase this team because it's been released officially by the creator, as well as also I have talked about and done an analysis on the finals match of the regional championships that I've been covering. So make sure, as always, to check out the bonus channel, because unfortunately this podcast is not sponsored. So yeah, anything kind of helps me out here. So but yeah, that was the team that got top 4 by Davide. Really strong performance and really cool team. Definitely a unique change on like something that we haven't seen in a bit. And then we got 5th place running the Elizabeth team by Fabian, and it's pretty much a copy of the team, except maybe like one change, which is, or maybe like 2 changes, which is the Terra Ground Pelipper over like the Terra Ghost angle, and having Wide Guard instead of Tailwind, which is actually pretty interesting. But having access again to Wide Guard, preventing the spread moves, can be pretty valuable, especially if you don't find yourself Tailwinding with Pelipper often. And then the Golden Go is going to be Power Gem instead of Protect, because I think Protect is kind of a niche angle. You don't really need it per se on the Golden Go, and having the Power Gem can be useful against like Charizard, against Volcarona, which can be a little bit annoying to the team if they have weather control. So I like the idea of having this option of the power gem. So it is pretty much just a copy or carbon copy of the Elizabeth team, however. So that was what Fabian used to get. 5th place. 6th place with Oliver, able to get a pretty much, the Doug core. It's pretty similar to the Shohei team that features Annihilate, Mousehold, Rillaboom, Blood Moon Ursaluna, the Dragonite, and then Sableye as the last mon, which is pretty interesting. So Sableye is definitely unique, and we've actually been seeing like a lot of just the prankster mons in general do well, right? The Grimmsnarl and Klefki even, as well as Sableye now, because you get access to screens, which can be very helpful in a format where the damage output immediately is a little bit lacking in the format. So just being able to set up like the really powerful like threats such as Annihilate, such as Golden Go, it makes sense that screens is pretty valuable. And Assault's Blood Moon Ursaluna with screens, really hard to break through. And I mean really hard to break through. So yeah, the thing that makes it interesting with Sableye is that it does get access to Prankster Disable, which it can be very useful, especially, and then also the taunt option to shut down stuff like a Moongus. So yeah, we have pretty much, as I said before, you have a really good 5, but maybe a few different sets. Assault Vest, Terra Ghost, Blood Moon Ursaluna, which is pretty interesting. Again, really good into Sneasler especially. So running the Terra Ghost option instead of like the other defensive Terras like the electric or the water that we commonly see. The normal Terra Dragonite for ghost type attacks, I assume. It does have extreme speed with Terra normal, but it's not like choice band or anything. So definitely an interesting choice there. And no Tailwind even. Terra Water, standard, Miracle Seed, Rillaboom on this composition since you have the Assault Vest on the Blood Moon Ursaluna. The Annihilate is Citrus Berry with Terra Water instead of Terra Fire, but still pretty solid Terra type, especially for the rain matchup or the sun matchup. It also works as well. And then you have this Mousehold, and it feels more like a global challenge or grand challenge team because it's actually a wide lens Mousehold with Friend Guard, which is pretty interesting. So you do have the Friend Guard option, but you have wide lens population bomb, and population bomb is able to threaten a lot of Pokemon like Dragonite even without the Technician. You normally run Technician on the Mousehold to really just get like powerful population bombs off, but still going to be enough supportive. Population bomb actually still does a decent chunk to a lot of Pokemon even without the Technician boost. So yeah, it does make sense there. And then still running Taunt again because Amoonguss is a little bit annoying, I think, for this team in general, as well as like Trick Room setup and more. And the Ghost Terra type to play around the Sneeze or Close Combat and resist the Dire Claws. So other than the wide lens Friend Guard Mousehold and the Sableye, yeah, definitely pretty much you have your Annihilate, Ursaluna, Dragonite with the Rillaboom. Just no Golden Go on this team. The Sableye is replacing it here and committing more on the Annihilate mode. Then we have Joan Garcia. I feel like I'm butchering this. It might be Juan. I think it's Joan though. With Dundozo, King Gambit, Baxcalibur, Sneasler, Rillaboom, and Volcarona. We've talked about this team when it came down to the Victory Road Challenge. This was a pretty common team back in the Regulation Age Part 1. The only difference is really it's Terra Poison Dundozo, which I think is more common than the Bug Terra that we saw. And it's running Liquidation over Wave Crash, which is kind of interesting because Liquidation does way worse damage into like Golden Go, which I feel like you want the damage for, but I guess like you really don't want the recoil in some cases. So running the Liquidation instead. And running the Terra Ghost on the King Gambit over the Terra Dark, running Stellar Terra, Sneasler with coaching, and then like loaded dice, Baxcalibur, which we talked about with Ghost Terra, again for opposing Sneasler if they don't run the Dro Chop set, Water, Assault Vest, Rillaboom, and then the Quiver Dance, Rage Powder, Volcarona with Overcloak and Terra Fairy. Not anything too different from what we've seen here, but was able to make it into 7th place. And then 8th place featured another carbon copy of the Elizabeth team, but it has Annihilate as an adjustment instead of the Golden Go instead. So makes sense because the idea is to take trades here with the final gambits and allow either a Chaladon or Ursaluna to do its thing. You also get a coaching mode, which is pretty cool, so you can actually lead like Annihilate plus Dragonite and go for coaching plus scale shot. So that's a pretty powerful option you have there. And yeah, like otherwise it's kind of, I guess you do have a few differences. I mean, it's Focus Sash Pelipper with Weather Ball on the Pelipper instead of the Muddy Water. You have a Terra Steel on the Dragonite. You have The mental herb on the Sinister says Citrus Berry, which is an interesting choice with Terra Steel, but pretty much the same thing. And then Safety Goggles, Terrifier, Annihilate with the coaching option. I guess just for certain trickery matchups in the final Gambit trade, may be more comfortable with it. And that coaching option with Dragonite, which can be cool as a lead, especially if you decide, hey, I don't really bring Golden Go as much on this team, which is understandable. Have Annihilate as a few different modes. Yeah, I think it makes sense in general. And it's still a mon that can switch into a Moongus with the safety goggles and put on a lot of pressure because of how good Annihilate and Golden Go are. Like, and then for ninth place, we have Nikolai Nielsen with, oh man, it's a mouse hold Annihilate team. It's fully committed on setting up the Annihilate, the bulk up Terra Water leftovers Annihilate with the Hospitality Sinistra, with Safety Goggles Mousehold, with the Beat Up, and you have Assaultfest and Incineroar that can help support the Annihilate. You have Life or Blood Moon Ursaluna, which is interesting, but gives you more of a blow up mode immediately, especially under the Trigger with Sinistra. And of course, you have Friend Guard Mousehold for the redirection. And then Hisuian Zork, which is pretty interesting. And the idea of the illusion is to play the mind games and maybe catch them really off guard, especially because if you transform, for instance, in the Blood Moon and they go for the close combat into the Blood Moon or Saluna and it reveals Zorak, yeah, you could lose a lot of momentum. So it also gives Icy Wind support for the Blood Moon, I imagine, which I don't know if this Blood Moon is actually fast or slow. I could definitely see being like modest max speed on this team. I'm not 100% sure on it, but yeah, it can definitely catch you off guard, especially if you lose turns into the Zorak that is disguised as another Pokemon or committing an early terrestrialization from a threat. So a lot of the team, again, is mostly focused on setting up the Annihilate, however. Then we have a Rain team from Julian, or I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right because I think it go many different ways. Running a interesting take on Rain because it's more offensive and it has things like, instead of like the standard Assault Vest, Stamina, or Challenge, it's running Sturdy with Power Herb with 3 attacks with Electroshock, Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon with Terra Electric. You have a Choice Scarf Pelipper instead, which is pretty unique here. Then you have Terra Fighting Nasty Plot Golden Go. Interesting Terra type choice, but I guess to help out against Gambit especially. The Grassy Seed Sneasler with 3 attacks, Terra Dark Throat Chop, alongside an Incineroar with Safety Goggles and an Assault Vest Rillaboom. So definitely an interesting take on Rain there. That was able to finish in the 10th place. 11th place was one of the Dundozo teams that was able to do well pretty much near the Victory Road Challenge, but it has a Dragonite over the Women's Cup, but pretty much kind of a similar idea. You do have the leftovers Underwear, Terra Grass, Dundozo with Wave Crash, Earthquake Order Up. You have the Attack Tatsugiri, I believe, with the, or Attack with Tatsugiri with Trickle Meteor, Muddy Water, Helping Hands with Safety Goggles. You have the Side Spammo with the Focus Sash, Male Entity, which actually has Fake Out, which is really interesting because I'm not exactly sure why it has Fake Out when you have Psychic Surge, but I guess like you can Fake Out a Dragonite and anything that's still flying, which is actually can be, I guess, useful in some situations. Surprised not to see like a Terra Blast angle or like something else, but yeah, that's definitely a change there. Then we have like a Scale Shot, Stomping Tantrum, Tailwind Dragonite with the Loaded Dice and the Terra Steel, and the Psychic Seed Sneasler with the Terra Dark Unburden. Pretty classic with Dire Claw, Close Combat, and Throat Chop as his options. So that was the Dundozo team that was able to finish in the 11th place. 12th place was using a pretty similar team to Victor Medina. Then we have 13th place, which features a Sand team, which is pretty interesting. You have Life Orb, Terra Water, Nasty Plot, Golden Go. You have Assault Vest, Standard Terra Flying, Terra Blast, Tyranitar. You have the Garchomp with the Clear Amulet, 3 attacks with Stomping Tantrum, Earthquake. You have Incineroar with Flare Blitz and Willis with no knockoff because you do have Tyranitar with knockoff, so you don't need double knockoff. And you also have the Air Balloon Sneasler, which is pretty interesting, with coaching for the Garchomp and the Tyranitar, as well as the Corviknight. But you also have Upper Hand, which is an interesting fire type move, which does have priority. It does fail if your opponent doesn't use a priority move, but basically the idea is if the opponent uses a priority move, you stop them from going for that priority move. Priority attack, not priority move. Priority attack specifically, and you do flinch them. But usually this was kind of a weird move because most of the time it was like an Inner Focus Extreme Speed mon that you couldn't stop because of Inner Focus. But yeah, it definitely can help out against like some Grassy Glide Rillaboom, some Fake Outs mons that are slower than Sneasler, yeah, like it can definitely help out there. And then the Covert Cloak Core Knight, which is pretty interesting. Not even bulk up, it is just Haunt, Roost, and Tailwind with Beret Bird, Terra Dragon, and Covert Cloak. So definitely an interesting sand team that was able to pilot there. And for the final player who made it into the top cut is going to be Adam, and running a King Gambit setup team with the leftovers, Quiver Terra Blast, Volcarona, running with the leftovers since you have the grassy terrain as well from the Rillaboom. That is a Assault Vest, so it can pair well with this Volcarona, give it a bunch of recovery with the Quiver Dance. You have the Safety Goggles, Terra Ghost, King Gambit with the double dark coverage. You have the also the Swords Dance Sneasler as well with the Terra Flying option. So a lot of the cases you have 3 setup mons, and it's really just supporting these 3 setup mons in however fashion. And then you also have this Fable, which is pretty interesting because you do have access to the Unaware ability, which is able to be immune to any stat changes on the opponent's side. It has that redirection, and again, good fairy coverage is really nice with the Moonblast, and you have Life Dew for recovery for the rest of your mons. And yeah, it is pretty solid there. We actually saw Clefable did win a regional championship pretty early in Regulation H. It hasn't been like the most common staple, but we do see it here and there, and it's still able to perform pretty well. And then the Choice Scarf Basket Legion again as a really cool revenge KOer and an early game like flip turn, scout the lead, and then set up, right? So yeah, pretty cool team from Adam. And then if we look down to see the rest of the teams, I mean, there are a lot of compositions that we would have seen in Regulation H already. We see Roberto Parenti, I believe, also team built with Davide, if I'm not mistaken, who finished top 4 with the same team of the Spafra Entity Spam team. We got a Frostmoth that finished 9-3 at 18th place, which was pretty interesting. And I think it was actually featured on stream. It was like a Quiver Dance setup with Terra Water, Terra Blast, and then Blizzard with the Snow, Aurora Veil, Ninetales, which was pretty cool to see there. And we also have, like, I think just a lot of general stuff that we have pretty much commonly seen in the past. And yeah, I mean, there's a Salamence in 23rd place that features dual Wingbeat, Rockslide, Tail, and Protective Lumberry, which is definitely an interesting set to see there. But yeah, that did actually place pretty well. And otherwise, a lot of the compositions, like their King Gambit balances, there's a lot of Doug combinations. Like, what else to say? There was a Dondozo Wheezing combination with Slacking and Tatsugiri, playing a lot of mind games, placing 30th place, again 9-3 record with the Poison Gas, Wheezing with Will-O-Wisp, double status actually with Covert Cloak. You have the Slacking with the Choice Band that can direct a lot of damage and knockouts, the Entity, and the Sneasler, of course, with the Focus Sash Male Entity with Terra Blast and Helping Hand, with the Dark Terra type Sneasler with 3 attacks, and then the Dondozo with Terra Grass, Leftovers, same 3 moves, and then the Safety Goggles, Tatsugiri. Also, I never really mentioned, but the reason why do you run Safety Goggles on the Tatsugiri is because in a lot of cases against the Moongus, they'll try to find a knockout to Dondozo and then usually spore the Tatsugiri once Dondozo's knocked out because the Tatsugiri is immobilized for the rest of the turn. So that's why you see a lot of Safety Goggles to cover for the spores on it, because you do have counterplay with a Moongus generally, especially like in Cinnamoroar Moongus against Dondozo compositions. But across the board, I think that's pretty much what I want to say. There was a Garganical in 35th place. There was a bit of side spam with Hatterene and Farigraph even in 36th place. That was able to go again 9-3. Alexander running the Klefki Mouse Ape combination. And yeah, I wouldn't really say there is anything like too surprising here. There was Jacob, who was featured on stream, that had a really cool team, finishing 8-4 at 49th place with the Toad's Cruel Wheezing combination. Of course, neutralizing gas to shut down how do you pronounce the name of Toad's Cruel ability? Well, you know, it just basically makes the spore a negative priority for Toad's Cruel, but of course Wheezing does shut down it, so it can actually go for like its fast speed stat to go for the fast spores. You have Comfey with Triage for the flow of healing. You have Kingdra, which is a pretty good Swift Swim cleaner, and then of course the Archaudon that can set up. So that's the idea there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I really want to talk about from this regional championship. I mean, there's like a few other mons you'll see, like Jamie Boye running really interesting Sarah Edge Magnezone team, which classic for Jamie, alongside the Salamence that was special, Assault Vest, Sneasler. Yeah, the classic Jamie. But yeah, there were quite a bit of like teams we've seen in prior Regulation H. But let's move on to our next regional championship, which is going to be the Monterrey Regional Championship. And the Monterrey Regional Championship was the same weekend as the Frankfurt Regional Championship. and it was held in Mexico. There were 282 masters. And yeah, this was pretty interesting because this is a team that you probably have not seen. And trust me, this is a new one here. So I don't know how meta game breaking it would really be, but we have Stefan Mott with a team that he was able to win the regional championship that featured 3 really unique Pokemon that we don't see much of. And actually, we did see this in Regulation H. It is Sylveon, Cypher, and Garganical. Yeah, Pokemon that we don't really commonly see. It's actually funny because Sylveon and Cypher is something we have seen in Regulation H do decent. It doesn't have like the strongest performance, but there was a tournament match specifically in Regulation H. I can't remember the exact players, but I do remember VJ Sood, who was a big pioneer of just using like Sylveon and Cypher, and he's been using Sylveon for like a long time, even in the restricted formats. And he's used Cypher in Regulation H before, and he was able to do really well in like the stream match. I remember from the game Regulation H. I wish I could remember the exact set or what the name of the opponent was, but they put in a ton of work. But yeah, the idea here, you have, yeah, completely different. And Stefan has actually been a player in Regulation H who's used Garganical in the past. I believe got day 2 at LIC using Garganical, and I think he might have used it even more in Regulation H, and I think got several day 2s with Garganical. I might be wrong on that, but I do remember him using Garganical quite a bit and doing well at LIC with Garganical, at least a day 2 performance from my knowledge. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see. We have this Drought Spray Sylveon with Pixelate and Terra Poison type with Hyper Voice, Wish, Yawn, and Protect. The Yawn, that's super disruptive. Wish, of course, for the recovery, which is pretty neat, especially on a more defensive team like this. And then Hyper Voice, which is a really strong fairy type move because of the Pixelate ability, but it does rely on that Pixelate ability to become a fairy type move, a little bit more power, which turns normal moves into fairy type moves. And the Terra Poison to help out against Sneasler. Then we have the Cypher, which is pretty interesting, but it kind of makes sense. A mon that has fighting coverage to help out against King Gambit, flying coverage because team is a little bit weak to the King Gambit. So having, or not King Gambit, it is weak to King Gambit. That's why you have close combat, but also like the Sneasler. So having the dual wing beat to bypass Focus Sash Sneasler is really cool here. And then U-turn, fast U-turn is pretty nice for being able to pivot around like Incineroar. And your defensive mode, I think it just helps out quite a bit and does some pretty significant damage. Also adds some speed to his team, which is nice. And the Moronga Berry Garganical. If you don't know Moronga Berry, it's an item that has done somewhat well in VGC in the past. It's like been an item used. I'd say probably the most example I could really give of Moronga Berry was like the Milotic back in like 2015, but it's not a common item. If you don't know, if you get hit by a special move on the user, it consumes the Moronga Berry and then gets a +1 special defense. And that's what Moronga Berry does here. The Garganical with Soul Cure, which is a really, really strong move because it's a weak rock hit initially, but it does residual damage forever. It does residual damage forever until the Pokemon switches out. So it does like, if I'm not mistaken, it does like 1/8 of the opponent's health, and then it does 25% if it's like a water or steel type for some reason. So yeah, and it's the effect is permanent, and they take residual damage at the end of the turn until they are forced to switch out, because yeah, that is insane. We saw Garganical do really well, of course, in like the early Scarlet Violet era with Regulation A or Series 1. I don't remember what it's called, but really beginning it was able to win a regional championship, but then like over time it has fallen off quite a bit. But yeah, it's interesting to see there. Stealth Rocks, which hazards we don't really commonly see in VGC, but yeah, I guess to punish like if they are switching in or out of Soul Cure to reset this, you know, the residual damage, you can go for the Stealth Rocks and punish the switches. And you know, there's a lot of Pokemon like Incineroar, Volcarona, and more that you like to get the Stealth Rock damage to recover, of course, to keep around, protect, to stall out the Soul Cure damage. We have Choice Scarf, Golden Gull, which this team does desperately need some speed and to put on pressure against like Sneasler, which can be a huge threat to this team. So it makes a lot of sense here with the Assault Vest Terrafire Incineroar, which I'm pretty sure was like very fast. I think it was like probably max speed Incineroar which the Assault Vest is really helpful there. And the Terrifier to power up its Flare Blitz, especially to help get knockouts maybe against opposing Sneasler. As I said before, Sneasler's a really big threat. And maybe like Golden Go after you get intimidated, so having that offensive pressure just in case. And then you have the Alolan Ninetales with Focus Sash and Aurora Veil to really just, allow the Garganacl to do its thing and allow Sylveon to become bulkier, as well as the Incineroar, which isn't running as much investment. So having that Aurora Veil plus the Assault Vest and Intimidate, yeah, it can make this team a pretty defensive in general. So it's definitely a cool team. I'm not sure how I would say it really holds up, because I do think the team probably struggles against really heavy setup mons, like because it's not wide guard Garganacl. I think it would probably struggle more against like really heavy protected Golden Go kind of teams, because this team doesn't have the best answers to beat opposing Golden Go initially. The only Pokemon that can really damage it are going to be your own Golden Go, which can get redirected, and then the Incineroar, which can get intimidated. Otherwise, Golden Go's pretty much just going to be on a nasty plot and then go for Make It Rain. So I do think it would probably struggle more towards the format, and we'll probably see later on. But yeah, I think it was super impressive that Stefan was able to do well. He was playing really well at the regional championship, and those matches were definitely incredible. So definitely go check them out if you haven't already. And I do have an analysis on this finals, where it was a pretty good final set, as the finalist is going to be Alexander, running pretty much like the setup King Gambit stuff. As I mentioned before, you have the Assault Vest Rillaboom, the Black Glasses Sword Stance, King Gambit with Terra Dark, the Electabuzz, which Electabuzz and Magmar were pretty common in the format of Regulation H because of Vital Spirit, to be immune to sleep stuff from Amoonguss Spores, Jump Up Sleep Powders, and of course random Dire Claw Sleeps, which no one really likes. And then you have Taunt Pressure as well. Covert Cloak on the Volcarona with Protect instead of the Rage Powder option, with the Terra Fairy option that it still has access to. Loaded Dice, Terra Steel, Dragonite with Extreme Speed over Tailwind, and then the Focus Sash Sneasler with Poison Touch, Stellar Terra with Close Combat, Coaching, Dire Claw, and Fake Out. So it's a pretty standard support team of like setting up the King Gambit and the Volcarona with some pretty good mons in general. Then we have Justin Tang, 3-time regional champ, running the same team he was running in the Toronto Regional Championship, which was the final event of Regulation H Part 1, which featured the Grassy Seed Golden Go with Terra Water and Nasty Plot, but more a defensive set than like the max speed sets we would commonly see. Assault Vest max speed Rillaboom with Drum Beating. The idea of this Rillaboom is to be max speed because you outspeed opposing Golden Goes by 1 point, and then you go for Drum Beating so you can slow them down and make them slower than your original Golden Go instead of going for like a speed tie. So that's the idea between the fast Drum Beating Rillaboom set. The Focus Sash Alolan Ninetales with Aurora Veil and Encore to be disruptive with Blizzard and Icy Wind. You have the Hisuian Arcanine with Clear Amulet, allows you Intimidate, but also more offensive sets to actually be able to damage stuff like the Fire Mons, like Incineroar, as well as just be able to pressure like opposing Dragonites in general. Then we also have the Loaded Dice Terra Ground Dragonites. And Terra Ground is like something that was used a bit in the first part of Regulation H. The idea is where max speed Electabuzz was pretty common with Blood Moon. So they would go for Electroweb plus like Blood Moon to KO your Dragonites before you could even move. So that was like the idea. But with Terra Ground, it kind of just prevents that option from being a thing. And yeah, that's basically why like you'll see a few random Terra Grounds in the format, is because of that combination of the Electabuzz max speed, because Electabuzz is pretty fast. Goes for Electroweb speed drop, and then it's like modest max speed Blood Moon to get a follow-up knockout. So that's kind of the idea of having the Terra Ground, because you can actually set up the Tailwind, for instance, and keep your multi-scale against it. Then White Herb, really bulky Sneasler. Like this Sneasler initially was really defensive, has that coaching option for the Dragonite, has the Unburden that can activate from White Herb from either the Close Combat drops or Intimidate, and of course coaching with your Rillaboom and the Hisuian Arcanine combination. So that was Justin Tang's team. And then we have in 4th place is a really heavy setup Annihilate team with Leftovers Bulk Up. That is pretty much focused on the Mousehold, Friend Guard, Safety Goggles, just to go for the beat up into the Annihilate to set up the Annihilate. You have the Hospitality on the Sinistra to heal the Annihilate. Light Screen and Reflect Angles from the Klefki with the Prankster. You also have Misty Terrain, which is good into the Indie stuff because you can go for Misty Terrain, shut down the Psychic Terrain, so Expanding Force is a lot less threatening to deal with, but also like prevents Dire Claw from getting a status onto the Annihilate, which is helpful there. Solvus Blood Moon Ursa Luna, which is able to do a lot with the Water Terra, and another good combinations like Blood Moon Ursa Luna plus Klefki. And then the Clear Amulet Tyranitar, which is pretty interesting with Rock Slide, Knockoff, Low Kick, and Protect, since you're not running the Terra Blast, Terra Flying, but you still have the Flying Terra because it's a good defensive typing. So a really heavy, just set up the Annihilate team with the screens angle, and you also have like a pretty defensive combination with like Blood Moon Ursa Luna, Klefki, and Sinisha as well. And then next we have William Brown running Greninja, which is pretty cool to see. Running a rain team with Focus Sash Pelipper, with Wide Guard support, Choice Band, Terra Water Basket Legion, and then the Archaludon with the Solvus Stamina, with Draco Meteor, Electroshock, Flash Cannon, Body Press. The Sinistra makes sense because you do have that Hospitality and as the redirection alongside the Trick Room and Life do. And then we see like a different take on the rain teams, which is this Greninja set. And this Greninja has a lot of cool things that it can just do here, which is going to be that Water Shuriken, which is a multi-hit water type move, which can go for like Water Shuriken into your own Archaludon for a stamina boost, and with loaded dice, again, 4 to 5 hit move, so it can be really impactful for getting that stamina boost. And then you also have Rain Dance for opposing weather, so if they want to like shut down your Archaludon and make sure it can't go for Electroshot because the rain would go away, yeah, you can go for Rain Dance if they try to switch in their Weathermon and then have the rain and then can go for the Electroshot. So that's a really cool option there. You could also go for like Greninja, leave a Basket Legion, go for the Rain Dance plus an attack immediately. Dark Pulse is pretty nice to hit to the Golden Goals, and you do resist Make It Rain and Shadow Ball with Greninja, so I think it's like a really cool pick here. So awesome to see Greninja be used in this way defensively. And then the Annihilate, which you also have like combinations with the Water Terror type plus the Water Shuriken, so you're not taking too much damage, and then stacking the Rage Fist, but also the Safety Goggles Annihilate can use to clear the board with Final Gambit. Taunt is really good against the setup mons, especially like the Porygon 2, Amoonguss, and Incineroar combinations. Like the Taunt, Final Gambit, Annihilate is really hard to stop. And yeah, then has like offensive coverage with Close Combat and Rage Fist. So really cool to see William Brown do well with the combination. And then Marcus Dion, we'll talk about his team more because we'll talk about it at the next regional championship, but running a team that we're going to see a bit, but the 6 are Dragonite, Incineroar, Golden Go, Annihilate with Mousehold and Basket Legion. It might sound familiar to those of you who follow VGC news. And then 7th place, we have Eric. I do not know how to pronounce it, but we have a very offensive team that features, it feels like 222, which if you don't know, 222 is a combination of just like leads in general and or modes. We have Tyranitar Excadrill Sand mode with Focus Sash Excadrill with Stellar Terra alongside a Assault Vest Terraflying Tyranitar. We have the Side Span with the Choice Scarf Entity alongside the Psychic Seed Unburden Stellar Terra Sneasler, which is a lot less common than Dark Terra because the Draw Chop's a lot weaker from Stellar Terra than it is from pure Dark Terra. And then we have the Mouse Ape combination with Safety Goggles Mousehold with Friend Guard and Beat Up alongside the Annihilate running a bulk up set with Citrus Berry and the Terra Dragon as the option. So definitely an interesting take there. And then Brandon Davis running a really interesting size spam team that features the Armarouge Entity combination, which Armarouge does have access to the Armor Cannon. The Flash Fire ability is pretty nice against like fire type teams like the Sun teams in general. The Psychic Seed Entity with Alluring Voice, and then the Follow Me, Trick Room, and Helping Hand option. Sash Flamigo with dual Wingbeat, Close Combat, Taunt, and Detect, which is interesting on a size span team, but the Flamigo is able to threaten Golden Go, it's able to threaten Gambit and Incineroar because the Scrappy does prevent the Flamigo from getting his attack dropped by Intimidate. And yeah, it can put on a lot of pressure there. Then you have some really interesting other options with Intimidate, Lumberry, Salamence with the dual Wingbeat for the Sneasler, I suppose, and speed option. So you have like probably a decently fast Armarouge and Ursaluna where you can get Trick 'em up if you need to, but if not, you probably still have some speed with Tailwind. Flame Orb Ursaluna, really powerful. And then the Power Herb Archaludon with Terra Electric plus Thunderbolt and Dragon Pulse, not having the Flash Cannon option that was able to get into the 8th place. And then 9th place, which was the final person who went X2 at the event and making it into the final bracket, which features pretty much just a similar team to what we saw earlier with the Covert Cloak, Quiver-Dance, Volcarona, Clear Amulets, Tyranitar because it's a Solvest Rillaboom this time, with Choice Scarf Adaptability Basket Legion running Poison Terror, which is interesting, but I guess just a defensive type to help out against like Grassy Glide from opposing Rillaboom. You have the Grassy Seed Sneasler with the Terra Dark option, and then the Terra Steel Loaded Dice Dragonite with Scale Shot and Extreme Speed. So kind of similar to the Volcarona team we saw in Frankfurt, but a little bit different changes, I'd say. But across the board, yeah. And Terraseki Tyranitar to help out against the combination of, you know, fine type moves in general, but also like still helping out against size spam, like the Indeedee. And yeah, then otherwise you have some teams like you have Hard Trick Room getting into 11th place with Charizard. You have a Masquerada, which was able to get 12th place with Primarina. I'm pretty sure this is Pledge. Yeah, it's Pledge, Grass Pledge, and Water Pledge. The idea of the team or combination of Grass Pledge and Water Pledge is it's a combo attack where it creates the swamp effect on your opponent's side of the field. And that basically means 4 turns, the opponent's side of the field will be at 25% speed or reduced to 25% speed of their initial speed. So a lot of Pokemon can outspeed. For instance, your Choice Specs Golden Go and your Life Orb Blood Moon or Ursaluna can really threaten some heavy damage there. So that's the idea of Pledge. That was able to finish at 12th place at 8-3. But otherwise, I think a lot of the comps, again, I kind of mentioned, we have seen in the past a few Hard Trick Room teams that we see more here, but across the board, like all the mons, it's not like something too surprising that we haven't seen before. But yeah, that was Monterrey. Then we're gonna go on to the next event, which is going to be the VR September Challenge #1, which was the same weekend as Pittsburgh, but I'm gonna just cover really briefly because I don't think there are any big changes that we really saw here from this event. So this team that Lucas used is actually a team that has been used before and was able to win the event, which is going to be the Black Glasses, Swords Dance, Double Dark, Terra Dark, King Gambit setup, Focus Sash, Special Blaze that came with Heat Wave, Aura Spear, and Coaching. You have Loaded Dice Baxcalibur with Terra Ghost Electabuzz with Follow Me, Electroweb, and Taunt. You have a Sylvester's Rillaboom, this time running U-Turn over to high horsepower, which is definitely an interesting choice. And then you have the Choice Specs Primarina with the Haze and the Fairy Terra with Liquid Voice, Hyper Voice, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, and Haze. So this team is actually a team that was used on Battle Stadium in the first part of Regulation H. It was a team that was able to place 29th place in the December season. And it pretty much features the exact same, I believe. Like, I don't think there's any changes, if I'm not mistaken, to this team. And yeah, like even spreads I am showing on the screen. But yeah, the team was made public in December, and it was just a really cool team to showcase. So yeah, that was the team that ended up doing well and winning the VR tournament. Then you have Awan using the same team that ended up winning the Frankfurt Regional Championship with the Acrobatic Sneasler, alongside maybe like a few small changes like this Focus Sash, Terra Ground, Terra Blast, Alolan Ninetales. And yeah, I don't think there's really too much of a differences though. But yeah, it is the same team basically that won Frankfurt, that got second place. Third place, we have pretty much a standard Porygon 2 Ursaluna builds with Incineroar, Golden Gold, and Moongus. This time with the Flamigo, as I mentioned before, because you do have the faster threats with the Scrappy Close Combat and the Golden Go, which can be a bit annoying for this team. Good into King Gambit, good into Incineroar with that close combat, and you do have that flying coverage, which is excellent as well. Then Elizabeth going again with the 4th place this time and getting a really good placement with his team. I don't think there were any changes that he made, if I'm not mistaken, other than I think he didn't have Terra Steel and Pelipper originally. He might have, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same team he's been running for the entire part. So yeah, he's still able to do well with his original team. In 5th place, we have the Dondozo combination with the Slacking and Wheezing that we saw a bit earlier, with pretty much the same stuff: Safety Goggles, Fairy Terra, Attack Boosting, Tatsugiri, with the Leftovers Dondozo, with Male Indeedee, with Focus Sash, alongside the Psychic C3 Attack Sneasler, with Terra Dark, the Choice Band, Slacking, and then the Wheezing on this team is like the only thing that's a bit different. It has Toxic Spikes, Poison Gas, and Assurance. Yeah, it is a regular Wheezing with Poison Gas, Toxic Spikes, which makes sense for Dozo, and Assurance as his only attacking move. I guess it's mainly for the Life Orb Golden Ghost. because if they take damage, it doubles in power. So not needing the poison move, I guess, if you have Sneasler. So I guess that's the reason why. And then sixth place, we had the Dondozo team that was able to do well before. Again, we've mentioned this before. Size Spam with Sneasler, 3 attacks, Terra Dark, Focus Sash Entity, Grass Dozo, Safety Goggles Fairy, Tatsugiri, with the Citrus Berry, Terra Normal, and Nightlight, which is an interesting choice with Coaching Final Gambit, and then the Dragonite with the Air Steel and Thunder Wave. Yeah, it's just Thunder Wave Dragonite. I don't know why it's Thunder Wave Dragonite. I guess for permanent status condition, but yeah. Other than the Dragonite, pretty much what you've seen before. And then we have Kieran, who's using the pretty much the Francesco and Victor team for the most part, with a few different changes to the Terra types: Water Amoonguss, Water Golden Go, but pretty much the same sets with the Life Orb, Golden Go with Nasty Plots, such as Berry Amoonguss, Choice Band, Terra Water, Basket Legion, Focus Sash Pelipper with Terra Ghost, Bug Terra type and Archarodon, except running Snarl over the Dragon Pulse, and then the Safety Goggles Incineroar. Yeah, it's pretty much the same there with the Terra Ghost Incineroar, this time over Terra Water. And then we have this team in 8th place, which is a Porygon 2 Ursaluna, Golden Go, Incineroar, Amoonguss, but the flying type this time is going to be the Kilowattrel, which we have actually seen. I believe this player has also done pretty well at the Australian regionals for regulation age. I think he might have top cut there, if I'm not mistaken. Don't correct me, but does have the Kilowattrel, has the Tailwind option, competitive, of course, +2 when its stat is lowered from Intimidate, which is useful. And you know, electric coverage is kind of hard to get by in this format, so having that against like the Pelipper's is really nice. Thunderbolt and Air Slash pretty good. The Tailwind support, yeah, it's definitely interesting with Fairy Ursaluna and Terra Flying Golden Go with Nasty Plot. Otherwise, there's a Solvest, Terra Grass, Incineroar, Citrus Berry, Water Amoonguss, but running Sludge Bomb over the Pollen Puff. But sometimes if you can pressure Terra Grass angle from the Spore, the Sludge Bomb does a significant amount of damage. And Terrifying Terra Blast standard Porygon 2. And yeah, those were the teams that were able to get the top 8 at the Victory Road tournament. And yeah, otherwise everything else kind of what you would expect for the most part from the format. Again, not anything too crazy for the most part, but yeah, let's move on to, I think, one of the main events, which is going to be the Pittsburgh Regional Championship, the first regional championship in North America at 746 Masters. And yeah, like, it was won by Chupa Cross, who is a now 2-time regional champion and just got off a top cut at the 2025 World Championship, and kind of running a different take on the Doug core, and running the Dragonite with the loaded dice, with the Terra Fairy, running the Assault Vest, Blood Moon Ursaluna, running Fire Terra, which is a pretty interesting typing over like Water or the Electric Terra, or sometimes even the Ghost Terra. But Fire Terra is definitely interesting for Fairy coverage. It's able to do well into the Sun teams. Yeah, it's just an interesting Fire type, or Fire Terra, but, or just an interesting Terra type in general. But yeah, it's one we don't commonly see as much. And then running the Golden Go, this time instead of the Life Orb Golden Go, gonna go more offensive, utilizing a choice specs with really just powerful Terra Steel, Make It Rains. You have the Safety Goggles Incineroar, which this one's actually really fast Incineroar, because the idea is the Incineroar is actually faster than Golden Go. The Golden Go is not max speed on this team. You can go for a knockoff if Incineroar that's fast, and you can go for a Make It Rain, and the idea is you can get rid of like Citrus Berries, you can get rid of a Assault Vest before the Golden Go moves, so it can be useful there. You also have probably a pretty bulky Golden Go because you're running it with Friend Guard Mousehold with Super Fang that's able to chip away at the opponent's HP. You can go for Super Fang combinations with the Golden Go. You also have that Feint option, so you can bypass Protect and make them vulnerable. Redirection with Follow Me, of course, and the Mousehold with Rocky Helmet to break sashes, with the Terra Poison to help out against Sneasler, and then the Basket Legion with Focus Sash and Adaptability. Now, Focus Sash Adaptability Basket Legion was a tech leading towards the end of the season. Like the Battle Stadium ladder season in December had a lot of adaptability Basket Legions with Focus Sash do well. They were normally on rain teams to bluff it, but it's still really powerful because Adaptability Basket Legion, we talked about last respect, how much damage it can really do. It does a ton of damage, so it can be an excellent revenge KOer. And the idea here is you can like have it in the back with Dragonite plus Basket Legion after like leading something like Mousehold plus Golden Go or Blood Moon Ursa Luna, really break through the team and then set up an end game for your Dragonite and your Basket Legion, because you have Focus as Basket Legion that can live any hit, and then you have Dragonite with multi-scale that doesn't go down to usually any attack, so, or any one attack. So that's kind of the idea here, is that you have like really great end game cleaner potentially. So yeah, a lot of offense and, you know, a bit of an edit towards the Doug core, but yeah, definitely an interesting take. However, some pretty good strong modes, right? You have the Incineroar, which is pretty classic. Intimidate just supports all of these bulky mons. The Mousehold with Friend Guard. The Golden Go, which Choice Specs does a ton of damage. You have the Tailwind support with Dragonite. You have the Endgame Sweeper with Basket Legion, alongside the Assault Vest Blood Moon Ursa Luna, that's just been super strong in Regulation H. Then we have Matt Tidd, who got second place at this regional championship with something that's been very different. However, it was actually something he ran in Regulation H before. I've actually featured his team on the YouTube channel, and it was a remake of his team. It had a few differences, but he did use this to get day 2 at a regional championship in Regulation H Part 1, and ended up making some changes, and now is getting second place at Pittsburgh here with the changes. So running the Heat-Proof Sinistra. Now, normally we see Hospitality. We don't really see Heat-Proof, but Heat-Proof, of course, does reduce the damage you take from Fire-type attacks. So, of course, getting rid of Sinistra's weakness could be, like, really cool. And then it has Mental Herb, which is able to help out against the taunts, where you could set up Trick Room, or you could still go for your Calm Minds. Break Sap, which is able to heal the Sinistra, and, of course, lower the opponent's attack by 1 stage. Matcha Gotcha, good Grass-type move. Burn Chance, recovers the Sinistra, alongside the Assault Vest Hariyama with Thick Fat. I think it was Flame Orb originally, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, running the Thick Fat Hariyama with Terra Psychic. And the Terra Psychic is mainly for the Entity Sneasler combination. And you do have, it's actually really good into Side Spam teams, because a lot of the Side Spam teams will have Sun generally. And yeah, like you have Thick Fat for the Fire type moves, having the damage from Ice type moves as well randomly, which is cool. And then the Terra Psychic to, you know, not take damage from Expanding Force. That's a lot of offense from Side Spam, just basically neutralized from this one Hariyama set. With Close Combat, Knockoff, Heavy Slam, and Fake Out, it's kind of interesting. Knockoff gets rid of items, of course. We don't really see Heavy Slam too much, because there's not like a Flutter main or many Fairy types in the format. I guess like if you want to get rid of Whimsicott, I guess it's pretty valid to have Heavy Slam, as well as maybe like some random Hatterines. But yeah, otherwise, a little bit interesting to see Heavy Slam still on it. Alongside the Safety Goggles, Terra Ghost, King Gambit. This one was running a pretty slow one, but it has no Protect. It has Iron Head. Like, there is zero, or there's 1 Protect on this team. Like, everything else is just coverage, which is kind of rare in VGC, but I guess if the coverage works, it works, right? Running the Terra Ghost, Safety Goggles, King Gambit, just running Iron Head over Protect that we commonly see. You have this Terra Steel, Covert Cloak, Volcarona. That's more of a setup Volcarona, which we have seen in the past, especially it was able to get top 4 at the Toronto Regional Championship with this supportive Volcarona set with Tailwind, Rage Powder, alongside the Struggle Bug to lower the special attack damage output of Pokemon like Blood Moon Ursa Luna, opposing Golden Go and more. And Flamethrower, of course, really good. It's a great Pokemon into Golden Go teams in general, so I do understand a lot, and this team does have an option to both Trick Room and Tailwind. And really, the Primarina here is going to be your main offense that we saw on stream, able to do a ton of damage because fantastic offensive coverage with Water and Fairy, great defensively and great offensively. Hyper Voice, Spread Water type move, Spread Fairy move with Dazzling Gleam, Moonblast is really powerful, and then Hydro Cannon if you really need to knock out. Yeah, like Choice Specs Primarina. Like Primarina fell off a lot early in the format because it always felt like it wasn't either taking the hits as well or wasn't doing enough damage, but this Choice Specs Primarina allows you to invest in bulk, and then the Choice Specs just really allows you to dish out a lot of damage. So having access to both Tailwind and Trick Room make a lot of sense. So Primarina, as long as it gets speed control, can really set up to KO. And then Sturdy Archaludon, which we've seen with Terra Electric, Power Herb with Electroshot, Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon Protect is a very powerful one. I can't really say like, oh, what's the synergy here, but a lot of it is mainly just, again, modes for your Primarina. You have Tailwind and you have the Trick Room option. You do have like setup King Gambit if you wanted. You do have, again, a lot of redirection for those setups. You have Fake Out support with the Hariyama. It's just like on a bit of a different role situation. So really cool to see here. And yeah, Matt was able to get second place at Pittsburgh with this really unique team and had probably a decent chance to win Pittsburgh as well. Then we have Daniel Yu in third place. Kind of combining both like the standard rain balance that we see from like Victor and Francesco alongside the Elizabeth team, where you have like this Focus Sash Stellar Pelipper, you have the Choice Band Basque Legion alongside a Terra Bug or Chaladon with the Electroshock Dragon Pulse Flash Cannon Body Press, and then you have the Sinistra Ursaluna mode, which makes a lot of sense, and then the Incineroar over what would be like a Dragonite in some cases, but yeah, just running Incineroar on it with the knockoff, fake out, taunt, and parting shot with Flying Terror, which is interesting to pair with the Earthquake from the Ursaluna, I suppose. And yeah, so this is just, again, you have like a good Pelipper, Basque Legion, or Chaladon. You have the Trick Room plus Ursaluna mode, and Ursaluna can also take advantage of Tailwind depending on its speed investment. And of course, Incineroar to balance around, pivot around, and of course, just be useful there. So that was Daniel Yu's third place Rain team. And then in fourth place was the exact same team, actually. I don't remember if they built together, but I'm pretty sure they did because they did the exact same core. I didn't actually realize it was the exact same build for third and fourth place, but yeah, it is the exact same build for third and fourth place. I do want to shout out is Water Sinistra over the Dark Terra for, I guess, better defensive typing in general, but yeah, it's the same exact for third and fourth place. Then we have Justin Tang once again, just running his Monterrey top 4 team, and again is Toronto top 16 team that features the Golden Gold, the Alolan Ninetales, the Dragonite, the Hisuian Arcanine, the Drum Beating, Max Speed, Assault Rillaboom, and the White Herb Sneasler. And he was able to have a really good performance and finish 5th place there. Then we have Joshua Lorsey, who was able to get a really strong placement with 6th place, able to just pilot the Frankfurt winning team, except it had maybe like a few changes with the Water Blood Moon Ursaluna over the Electric Terra, and then also running the Terra Ground Terra Blast Alolan Ninetales here. And wait, was it actually that set the entire time and maybe I'm just mixed it up? Yeah, no, it wasn't on the Emanuela team. Okay, I was about to say, it wasn't. Like, I've been seeing the Terra Ground Terra Blast change. I'm like, is it a mix up? No, it is a mix up from the winning team. And yeah, it was able to perform well, and he was able to top 8 there with the same team. Then we have in 7th place, we have Vincenzo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm already super tired because I've been recording this for quite a bit. But right in the same team we saw from Monterrey getting 2nd place with the Dragonite, Kingambit, Volcarona, Electabuzz, Sneasler, and the Rillaboom. I was able to get 2nd place there and was able to finish in the top 8 here. And then we have Rushil. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. Conkeldonk is his tag with the Choice Scarf, Fighting Terra, Terra Blast, Scarf Basque Legion, Life Orb Offensive, Alolan Ninetales with the Ghost Terra and Encore. You have the Focus Sash Sneasler with Fake Out Protect and Stellar Terra Poison Touch. We have Fire Black Glasses Kingambit with Swords Dance Double Dark Protect. We have a Violet Magmar with Taunt and Follow Me, Heat Wave, Ghost Terra, and then Ghost Terra Solvest Rillaboom, which is pretty interesting. So definitely an interesting take on the Kingambit setup, but yeah, it's a lot more of offensive capabilities with fast offense with Alolan Ninetales and the Basque Legion, but you have the double fake out alongside the redirection with Magmar for your Kingambit mode. And yeah, like otherwise we have in 9th place again the Emanuela team from Jeremy, but yeah, pretty much the exact same 6 and sets from that regional alongside, yeah, like it's pretty much the exact same. I think it's like a carbon copy paste. Then we have Umfamezi in 10th place, and he is running a pretty interesting take on kind of like Tailwind offense. He's running a Focus Sash Whimsicott with Terra Ghost, with Tailwind Encore Protect Moonblast, Wide Lens Mousehold with Fairy Terra. This is so that Scale Shot, basically you're immune to it. So if you lead like Whimsicott Mousehold, you're immune to the Scale Shot and make Dragonite kind of useless, but you can also go for a Follow Me with Terra Fairy, so you are able to help out your own Dragonite or just make Dragonite, basically opposing Dragonites, not really that pleasant to fight the Mousehold against. With Fairy Terra, that can also just resist the fighting move from the Sneasler. Population Bomb able to do a lot with the Technician and the Wide Lens. We have the Golden Go with the Nasty Plot Life or Make It Rain set. You have this Mirror Urban Incineroar, which That's pretty much the standard move pool, but Mirror Herb makes sense because we saw Mirror Herb and Sinnoh do well, especially at the Latin American International Championship, where Eric Rios and Alex Gomez was really able to pop off of Mirror Herb in Sinnoh. We talked about Mirror Herb with the Annihilate and the other things that it can copy from King Gambit, get that boost. That can be really helpful because some of these Pokemon don't like King Gambit, especially. And running the Choice Scarf, fighting Terra, Basculegion with Terra Blast as an option, and then running this Dragonite with the Terra normal set with Outrage, Giga Impact, Extreme Speed, Stomping Tantrum with the Inner Focus set over the multi-scale. And we've seen the Choice Band Dragonite do well before. It's usually like the Terra Flying if they don't run Chien-Pao, and since Chien-Pao isn't allowed in this format, we don't see Terra normal nearly as often, but instead we're going to see a repeat. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's a Tailwind offense team. You have a lot of offense with Golden Go, with Life Orb, immediate damage output, Choice Band Dragonite, also Wide Lens, Mousehold, and then you also got the Basculegion. You always got to fear with the Last Respect. So definitely a very cool team from Ufemezi. And then we have in 11th place kind of a interesting snow team. I mean, it's Life Orb, Terra Water, Nasty Plot, Golden Go, Safety Goggles, Final Gambit, Coaching, Annihilate. We have Ghost, Sash, Ninetales with Encore, Roarville, Icy Wind, and Blizzard. The Sturdy Archaludon with Electroshot, Thunderbolt, Draco Meteor, Protect with Stalwart. That's able to bypass redirection. So you ignore any form of redirection. So you can like Electroshot, opposing Golden Go out there next to Mungus, for instance. You have the Solvest and Incineroar with the Loaded Dice, Terra Steel, Dragonite with Tailwind and Haze Protect. So definitely an interesting take. You have the Golden Go, you have the Alolan Ninetales with Roarville, and you of course have Dragonite and Incineroar, which are good pairings. And then yeah, definitely a bit more different from what we commonly see on that kind of build. Then we have Zachary Reed with the team from Monterrey getting 12th place. Then we have Kaylin Brown with the team that was able to get second place in the VR tournament that we mentioned before, with the Hydreigon and the Porygon 2 Ursaluna with Golden Go and Incineroar Mungus. Then we have James Evans, who was our runner-up at the 2025 World Championship. He took a team from Monterrey and edited it, and the idea of this team is basically you have this team that did really well. I think it got first place in the Japan or in the Battle Stadium ladder with Cobra Cloak, Whimsicott with Fake Tears. You have the Focus Sash, Basculegion with Liquidation, Last Respect, Aqua Jet Protect with the Ghost Hair for adaptability, really powerful attacks. But you also have the Rain with Pelipper and Choice Scarf. And the idea was you have the Sash Basculegion, you bluff the Choice Span, Swift Swim, Basculegion generally, but it's actually the adaptability version with the Last Respect. The Choice Scarf goes on the Pelipper because you have your Sash taken and can put on a lot of offensive pressure. You have Sturdy Archaludon with Electroshot, Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon Protect with Terra Electric. You have the Terra Fighting Golden Go with Terra Blast to be able to pressure Blood Moon, Ursaluna, King Gambits, and more with it. And then the Assault Vest and Incineroar to pivot around. So this was an adaptation of the team that won the Battle Stadium ladder season again in Japan. It was more built for best of one because you could bluff the Pelipper Basculegion mode, and no one really ever saw Terrifying Terra Blast Golden Go before. But yeah, now it's been a bit more common recently, but it's not like a huge mainstream because it is again very situational, and it does work better again in closed team sheet, but it still can work in open team sheet as you can see here. And James Evans was able to finish 14th place. And then we have Rajan with a really crazy team with Chlorophyll, Whimsicott, and not Prankster, so you can still go for Encore, and it makes the Whimsicott extremely fast in general, just for fast Moonblast, because you can Moonblast Dragonite twice, and you'll outspeed them even if they get a Scale Shot boost or a Tailwind up. You have fast Encore, Tailwind, Protect. You have the Charcoal Ninetales with Nasty Plot and Double Fire move, Protect. Yeah, sets up the Sun. It's regular Ninetales too. It's Kanto Ninetales, not Alolan Ninetales. Then you have the Loaded Ice, Scale Shot, Dragonite with Extreme Speed, no Tailwind because you do have Tailwind on the Whimsicott. We have Safety Goggles, Mousehold for redirection with Super Fang to chip away, Taunt to, of course, prevent setups, Follow Me for redirection. You have the Life or Blood Moon Ursaluna, which can be really good under the Tailwind, and of course you have the redirection. And then Rillaboom as a terrain changer, and of course being able to hit the water types out there with standard Assault Vest Terra Water set. So Definitely a unique one here. I don't know how the Ninetales and the Whimsicott really make the changes here, but definitely really cool to see. And congrats to him for getting a top 16 with this team, because it's definitely one of the more unique teams from the Pittsburgh Regional Championship. I'll definitely say that. And of course, we have some teams from, of course, the ones that didn't make it into Top Cup. We see like a lot of stuff that we have seen before, but we see a Dustclops get 17th place, piloted by Ben Grismer on a Sand team, which was to pair with the Ursaluna for Trick Room mode. And I mean, I don't think there's anything, again, really too crazy. There is a Lucario by Cade Bowles. I don't know how to pronounce that, but yeah, running Lucario on just like a Talonflame hyper offense team with Tailwind support, and just has a Sinistra with no Ursaluna, which is pretty interesting. Uh, yeah, I don't know what else to really say. There's a Gardevoir in 36th place, which has access to the Expanding Force with Telepathy, so you can go for Earthquake because you have Excadrill Sand with it. You see the Hisuian Electrode with Archaludon and Pelipper, so you can go for like Loaded Dice Bullet Seed and go for an anti Archaludon to activate the stamina boost. You also have like Electroweb and Worry Seed to get rid of abilities, so it's a really kind of cool mon here. It's been used a bit in Regulation H, but mostly on ladder in like grand challenges and Battle Stadium more than it has in actual tournament. Wrong Song by Edward Glover in 39th place, finishing 9-3. And yeah, I mean, like a lot of these teams, I'd say, are just like, again, edited teams that we've seen before. William Brown able to finish 53rd place with his Rain team in the Monterrey Regional Championship. And we saw Quaquaval. Quaquaval's been used a bit on the Rain teams, adding a fighting type to help out against King Gamut by Blake Silver at 55th place. Orfworm in 59th place, paired with Excadrill Sand. And then we also see like, yeah, like a lot of these teams, again, are stuff we've seen already before in the tournaments for the most part. So I think that's just going to cover everything, because I think this went a bit longer than I expected. I kind of went in depth at the beginning, especially for the newer listeners, because I am doing kind of a bit more simplified stuff that I mentioned before, in like, because it's going to be a new audience maybe between Spotify for new listeners as well as YouTube. Again, if you do enjoy the Baekfast Club, be sure to do whatever it is that Spotify does to promote it, as well as, again, if you do enjoy the content on YouTube, make sure you help out, because currently the first season is slated just till the end of December, so it's going to go for the rest of the year, and then we'll evaluate if we continue. So we will see. So it would help out if you do leave a like down below, or leave a comment down below what you think about it. But yeah, like a lot of Regulation H, I think is kind of solved for the most part. I think it's just like either players who are just fixing the old Regulation H teams from where we left off. I don't think there's really any super big changes that we noticed. Like even some of the teams that like seem like a bit newer were kind of just teams that were kind of taken from the trends towards the last part or the last month of December, and kind of just edited. Maybe we saw a lot less Sun than we did, because like the Marco Fierro team that was able to get first at LIC, we haven't really seen much of, but Sun has been kind of in a rough spot. We kind of seen like Hisuian Typhlosion Sun also drop off, but I think Sun's just been in a hard place with a bunch of weather wars currently at the moment. And Dragonite being one of the best mons in the format, because it's really hard to break through multi-skill Dragonite using Sun Course, so it does make sense a lot why it's been having some struggles. I think, again, a lot of the core compositions, like I guess like the only things we've really seen maybe change since like the part was some of the Battle Stadium trends. Again, we saw like the Life Orb Golden Go with Terra Fighting, maybe a Solvest Ursaluna, and like Ursaluna's been used before. We saw the Yawn sets defensively as well with Rillaboom. Like those were used in LIC, for instance, part 1. They're not like super crazy. Again, maybe just changing some Terra types and experimenting a bit, but across the board, nothing too crazy. I think Alolan Ninetales has had more usage since coming back, because of the fact that there's so much weather, so it does make sense that Alolan Ninetales picked up. The Sneasler, again, was kind of a set we used in Regulation Age part 1, but kind of made a much more stronger comeback, I think, in part 2. And then Adaptability Basculegion, of course, absolutely incredible. And I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been used as much more, especially like these Focus Sash sets from the Battle Stadium season from like December have been really picking up with the Focus Sash. So I think that's a mod that could definitely be explored a bit more. But across the board, like I think a lot of it is kind of similar, right? You're experimenting with different terror types, maybe experimenting with a few different move options, but I don't think the meta's really changed. Like, I think if you like were playing Reg H, maybe like if unless you're playing Sun or something, you don't really notice too much of a difference for the most part. Like maybe there's definitely room for innovation, but a lot of players are just sticking to what they knew, right? Because like it is the first event of the seasons for a lot of these players, and a lot of it is just like edited versions of like really good stuff from previous Reg H. And I think we're just going to continue that route because Regulation H did feel really, I guess, kind of stable towards the end. I don't think there's really any super big innovations we'll see, but then again, we do have time with like a few grand challenges. I do want to mention I'm not mentioning the first grand challenge because I don't think we have all the results in teams, so I'm not going to really talk about it. Maybe I'll talk about the first grand challenge if we get more teams and results from it, but across the board, I don't think we're seeing too much changes. And also, like, I think a lot of top players, usually we see Japan especially innovate, don't really have a reason to compete in Regulation H because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they don't really have a tournament to compete in. Grand challenges are for more of the people in the West than the East because it's usually for like championship points in the line. I don't even know if Japan can actually enter grand challenges if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I just don't think many of them are really like, I think a lot of them are on breakpoints. So yeah, I just don't think there is anything for them. So we're not really going to see any super, I think, different creative team building because there's not even a battle stadium ladder for Regulation H. If you don't know, Regulation J is currently the battle stadium format, which means that no one in Japan is really playing Regulation H because they don't have like a tournament reason to why, because they would play for battle stadium ladder sometimes, but there's nothing really allowing them to play Regulation H or like a reason to give for them. So yeah, we're just kind of in a point where I think we're just kind of going to stick to these. Maybe, of course, we could see some breakthroughs with like Sun, maybe Dundozo, like, has had some good placements. If they find a team that can really break through the Dragonite haste stuff, like, yeah, it can definitely put in work. But we'll probably just see like adjustments, maybe some shifts here and there, just between like, oh, this core is getting a little bit disrespected. Maybe it comes back up on a surprise and then it kind of loops around like the rain, sun, and sand alongside the Dragonite or Saluna stuff, the King Gambit stuff. But I think across the board, we're kind of at a point where it's kind of a solid format. I'll keep updates with the podcast, but yeah, like that's why I kind of waited for Regulation H because I don't think there's been any much two changes. A lot of teams we've seen are kind of just a few slight changes to, again, popular teams that we saw in Regulation H Part 1. They were used a lot in either World Cup or regionals or battle stadium, so I don't think we really had that much of a change. So if you're starting off the VGC format, like if you are a new player, this is the perfect time to get into it because a lot of it is pretty much like, sure, you could go for like comfort and really build something out of the box like Matt Tid did, but this is also something he's used since, again, Regulation H Part 1. So unless you really have something you really find that's something maybe unique that hasn't been explored yet, maybe you could build off. But I think a lot of players are just going to be kind of just using what they've been using in the past, maybe some adjustments, maybe they'll try some things out, maybe we'll find some Pokemon out there. But right now I could see like some Pokemon. I don't want to give my text away in case I potentially compete in a regional because I don't plan on competing at a regional. I think I did sign up for Vegas, but I have no idea if I'll actually compete or not. But yeah, the idea here is I'm pretty sure that we're just going to see a lot of common stuff. Maybe we'll see some maybe we'll see some new builds eventually. But for the most part, I don't think we're going to see like a whole general shift, right? Maybe in the next couple of regionals, but those are a couple of weeks away. Or maybe someone builds something crazy for a grand challenge that wins. Oh, we'll have to wait and see. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of the Baekfast Club. I do apologize for my normal listeners if the beginning was a little bit like basic, because again, I want to explain it for anyone who hasn't really seen VGC much, and I also need to accompany any new listeners to the Spotify. But yeah, if you do enjoy the podcast, make sure you leave a like down below, leave a comment down below, especially because this is either on a new Spotify or a new YouTube channel. It really does help out, so I would appreciate it. And if you want to see potential continue on into champions for VGC news on this podcast talk show, make sure that you hit the subscribe, hit the like, and yeah, it really does help out because, again, don't know if I'll continue it. I did say that I would continue it if the bonus shout did well, but I didn't say it would be a mainstay. I did not say it was going to be a mainstay, and it really just depends because Regulation H does have some, again, a lot of completion. We'll see how it continues, but yeah, we'll also probably have some topics that I'll talk about VGC wise that aren't just Regulation H. I think next episode I will be talking about my Worlds run. So if you're interested in that, like my experience at competing at Worlds in general. So if you would be interested in listening to that, be sure again to subscribe. It really does help out, and let me know what you would want me to talk about in a potential Worlds talk about, because it could be like even more than just like my actual tournament run. It could be like just my experience at Worlds. Maybe we'll talk about like champions coming up and will be my wish list. Maybe we'll bring guests in the future. Who knows? Let me know what you would like to see on the Baekfast Club. But I really do appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below, what was your last meal and was it enjoyable? Because for me, what was my last meal? I don't even remember my last meal. My last meal was, oh yeah, it was pasta. It was pasta. Oh geez, I feel like I am really getting old, but I think it's just because I've been talking for too long. So let me know in the comments down below. Might have been longer episode than it should have been, but I think for first episode, for anyone new to VGC, yeah, I don't think I'll be simplifying as much as like what general abilities do for the most part. But yeah, like I hope for anyone new, I hope that does help out. And of course, if you want to learn more about VGC, you can check out my YouTube channels at youtube.com/ at @James W Beck, and or at James W Beck Pokemon, or no, not Pokemon, PKMN, because I abbreviated, and then the James W Beck bonus channel. You could search those up on YouTube. It really does help out with this podcast as well. Supporting those videos does help me out here. So if you would like to see more stuff from the podcast, make sure you go support those channels as well. But thank you to all for listening, and we will catch you around for the next episode, where I'll probably be talking about my Worlds experience and what I really enjoyed from the World Championship and what I didn't maybe enjoy as much. So make sure you stay tuned.